Portions of the following program may be unsuitable for younger or more sensitive viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news, reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit education or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. This video was made for entertainment purposes and is transformative in nature.
You feel, however, that we're making progress in this country and worldwide?
No. I will never say that progress is being made. If you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. You pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that the blow made. And they haven't even begun to pull the knife out, much less try and heal the wound. They won't even admit the knife is there.
You haven't.
Hey, John, what do you want us to take away from this extraordinary series of yours?
Well, I want people who are not Latin to have Latin envy and wish they had been born Latin, and for Latin people to realize, damn, being Latin is a superpower, man. I mean, the things that we've suffered in this country, 500 years, our wealth was stolen from us. We were lynched. We were burned, shot alive. We've been the only American citizens that have ever been deported by the millions. And yet we contribute and we build and we thrive.
To me, if you have been here for 5 years and you do not have a criminal record, you will be able to go on the dignity status for 7 years.
That status is like a probation period.
You will not be deported. You will not lose your assets. You can work anywhere in the country. You will pay taxes.
And there would be an additional tax.
A new levy of 1.5 withholding called the dignity levy will be held from your paycheck. You will not have access to any government program and will have to buy your own health insurance.
And another charge.
You will pay $700 a year for 7 years, and that adds up to around $5,000. Those $5,000 will represent around $45 billion.
This is provided that the undocumented immigrants total 10 million, but there are more.
And that fund will go to pay for border security. The other bucket of money, the 1.5, will go to re-educate or retrain any American who believes that he or she has lost his opportunity, his job opportunity, to an undocumented.
Some of the other legislators who support the bill said they are aware that it is not perfect. They said it's better than doing nothing.
Various groups, feminists, gay rights groups, and those who are defending immigrants have commandeered the black civil rights experience. Yes. What do you mean by that?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that because I think it's one of the most important points of the book. I mean, I think the way liberals have treated blacks like children and many of their policies have been harmful to blacks. At least they got the beneficiary group right. We do have to, I mean, we shouldn't. There is the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow laws. We don't owe the homeless. We don't owe feminists. We don't owe women who are desirous of having abortions, but that's, or gays who want to get married to one another. That's what civil rights has become for much of the left. They dropped the blacks after 5 minutes.
Immigrant rights are not civil rights?
No, I think civil rights are for blacks. We done to the immigrants. We owe black people something. We have a legacy of slavery. Immigrants haven't even been in this country. Democrats are dropping the blacks and moving on to the Hispanics because they're a larger group of Hispanics now. But could I just say to Jorge, I hate to disagree with you when you're attacking President Obama, but I think the point on immigration is you can have open borders or you can have a welfare state. You cannot have both.
Doing a great job with the heart these days.
You're late again, Eddie.
Trying to do. You ain't gonna do it. See, Big Red done pulled my coattail to you a long, long time ago.
That's bullshit, Eddie. You're talking crazy.
Crazy like a mother fox. And you, I can see through your jive ass like glass, nigga.
Eddie, you got it all wrong, man.
Stealing my moves. My style, nigga. Even trying and a wrist like me.
Hey man, why don't you get your boy out of here and detox him?
You on my spot, Flash? Slum dwelling, scum sucking, slug ass motherfucker. You on my spot, Flash? Huh? Well, you ain't gonna get it, cause you ain't got it.
He's the kind of boy seems innocent, Boogie. Got everybody on the post thinking he's a strong black buck. White boys envy his strength, his speed, power in his swing. Then this colored champion lets those same white boys call him Shine or Sambo.
Whoa, Lord.
And he just smiles.
Dream about the time when I was a little boy.
Can't talk.
The night would get
Can barely read or write his own name. And don't care. He'll tell you they like him. Or that colored folks ain't supposed to have but so much sense.
Yes, he would.
You know the damage one ignorant Negro can do. We were in France in the First War. We'd won decorations. But the white boys had told all them French gals that we had tails. Then they found this ignorant colored soldier. Paid him to tie a tail to his ass and run around half naked making monkey sounds. They put him on a big round table in the Cafe Napoleon. Put a reed in his hand. Crown on his head. Blanket on his shoulders and made him eat bananas in front of all them Frenchies. Oh, the white boys danced that night. Passed out leaflets with that boy's picture on it. Called him Moonshine. King of the monkeys. And when we slit his throat, you know that fool asked us what he had done wrong. My daddy told me we got to turn our backs on his kind, Wilkie. Close our ranks to the chitlins, the collard greens, the cornbread style. We are men, soldiers. And I don't intend for our race to be cheated out of its place of honor and respect in this war because of fools like CJ. You watch everything he does. Everything.
You said your people have been fighting for 400 years.
Man, your peoples too.
So I just want you to explain what you mean by that.
You know what I'm talking about. Y'all all know what I'm talking about, man. Don't sit up here and try to bait and not know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what the I talk about when I say these things. Your people too.
Explain it. Not everybody knows what you're talking about.
Radio Raheem, I don't have to explain what's understood, man. You know what I mean by that. You know what I said by that. I ain't got to go further. And if anybody don't understand that, then God be with them. Go look up the history. Go look up the history. Don't everybody believe in Google? Go Google that. See what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about, man. You know what I dare you to sit up there and say is explain. You know what I'm talking about, man. He's fighting people. You know we've been fighting 400 and still fighting to this day. To this day. To this day. You just sit here, you don't know.
And since the American white man has used his control over the press to rewrite history or retell history, and since the white man can't dispute this truth, it's not hate to say that we were kidnapped and brought here, it's truth. It's not hate to say that we were Jim Crow, discriminated and segregated, it's truth. It's not hate to say that the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in this country, came up with a hypocritical desegregation decision 9 years ago, which they haven't enforced yet. That's not hate, that's truth.
Remember, the enemy has only images and illusions, behind which he hides his true motives. Destroy the image, and you will break the enemy.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. I am your host, the whiteologist, Mr. Blows Your Minds, and this is We Up Report. First and foremost, I want to say what's good to the fam that's in the house. I know I've seen a couple of y'all before I address y'all. Got to always go to my executive producer, one who comes through, makes it what we do to do some kind of, congratulations or at least appreciation. We got to give our hats out to this brother here, Mr. Spencer 0620. Once again, coming through, helping as always. So we take our hat off to We Up Reporting the family. Say thank you, Mr. 0620. And I'm asking a question, Mr. Spencer. Is the 0620 got to do with your birthday? And if it should be, happy belated birthday, because I should have called it on the last month, right? So we thank you once again. We Up Report. Thank you for your contribution as you have been done week in and week out. Some people may think that this is some kind of ploy. Nah, that brother is 100 thorough and always on time. Again, we give our thanks to that brother there for his contributions. Had a couple messages out here that was out there by We Boogie in the house. Aboriginal of Knowledge is in the house. What's good, fam? Sirs, we're glad to see that you are here coming through. Glad to see that you stopped through. What else we got going on in here? Well, again, we got another show for you this week on the Sunday. And some of you may have just come by. We've been in the business going on 11 years. You never heard of us because we are the most suppressed show that you can find on any channel in YouTube. That actually said, what does that brother be talking about over there that they won't even let him get 200 views, 100 views? He's been doing it for 11 years. Some people may even be thinking, say, man, why that brother keep doing that, man? You embarrassing yourself. No, when you understand the fight, when you understand when some people go out their way to make sure that you can't be heard, that's obvious. Obviously, you don't understand it. You don't get it. You know what I'm saying? When you don't get it, you think by numbers mean that somebody is greater. Sometimes the greater people are the people that they go out their way to make sure not to be heard. Anyway, if you knew to come over here, go down the aisle, happen to see something to make you feel some kind of way, remember the motto of my show is the truth. Don't need no partner. What were we going to talk about today, Mr. Blows Your Mind? Well, as you've seen, some of you might have clicked on due to the thumbnail, a Negro black. Or what then? Let me say that one more again. A Negro black. Or what then? Oh, that's a question, right? And there's some things that I have seen that have kind of gone over the last week, and then there's some things that we're going to connect from last week, because again, it kind of paused on me a little bit, so I wanted to make sure that I clean that up. But what is a Negro, y'all? We've been called that for those of you who are from the lineage of Black Americans, which we know, as we're going to learn in this show, the difference with a Negro, black, and what may possibly be the reason why some people abhor to the reason why we use that terms. And there may be some truth to it, and then we just got to see some personage in history and how they looked at it. And then some other things may fall out, and you may learn something that you may have not known before. Now, again, Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King are personages, and a lot of people give some esteem to their existence and some of the works that they did and what some people believe to be good, and some on the other spectrum said not so good. But in this particular show, we're going to show some things so that maybe you didn't know. So before I get into all of that, again, when we look at the word Negro, a Negro is just basically, they say, a member of any of the indigenous peoples of sub-Saharan Africa. Let me say that one more again. They say that Negro is a member of any of the indigenous peoples of sub-Saharan Africa or of their descendants. So they say people who come from Sub-Saharan Africa are kind of labeled indigenous people. Keep that as a mental note in your mind as we go into today's show, right? So a Negro can be an indigenous person. It's also a member of any of the dark-skinned indigenous people of Africa. Again, the word indigenous still keeps coming up when you make reference to the person that's been identified as a Negro, and then they're going to make the demarcation line to be Africa. It's the only place you can be an indigenous person is only in Africa, or is indigenous person mean any place within the globe, what they call the planet Earth? Why does it have to only be Africa? But we're going to do some things, and we're going to go down that line, and we're going to see how much, if, let's say, for instance, those who are of the, let's say, 4,441,830, what they said on the census going back in 1865. If y'all need to go back to there, you are considered to be what we say Black Americans, African Americans, Italians, Indigenous, Moors. Right, there's a whole lot of names, right? Niji, there's a whole lot of names. The brothers and sisters are out here doing that work, sipping through, trying to get to that truth. So that's all it's about. No matter how many roles it takes, we all going for them, both trying to become one, right? And when we finally get to that place, that's when, that's when everything gonna come to fruition. But until then, we're working at different levels. There's different information, there's different knowledges. Some we're listening, we're learning. That don't make because you may be ahead of the line. It's not about the fact that you got it first. It's the fact that everybody behind you catch up to you. And once we all on that same line, then we become a closed fist, right? That's what we're looking for, that closed fist. And so we're going to delve into that. And so I got a message. Let me check this message before I go any further. I got Mr. Spencer in the house. What's happening with you, sir? What you mean with your bag? What you mean your bag? You ain't there with your bag. It was your it was your birthday. Let me clean that up. We'll put that up on the screen there. Yeah, it was your birthday. Happy belated birthday to you. But I kind of figured what that 0620 was. I said, well, that his birthday? It was your birthday. Happy belated birthday, brother. That is the executive producer of the show. He is the most thorough subscriber I have. And we always gonna be appreciative when Mr. Spencer 0620 comes into the house. Got another message from We Boogie. They want to Africanize all dark peoples of the world. They got this bad in Latin America. Last week I had said monetize, right? When I meant to say, I said monetize when you said demonize, right? Or I said demonetize, I think, when I should have said demonize. So I went and looked at the repeat, and I was like, wait, what the hell was I talking about? Some damn demonetized. What the hell was I talking about? But I understood with demonetized. But what's good with you, We Boogie? And right, Africanize all dark people of the world. We got this bad in Latin America. Well, that's the thing too. See, people want to say that race doesn't have no real play, that everything is a figure of our imagination. It's a construct, but this is the construct of the game that's played. You play Monopoly, Scrabble, Dominoes, whatever game, there's some instructions to it. And the way that it's formulated is the only way that the game gonna move. You can say what etymology is, you can say what the dictionary say, but that which rules and governs makes this game plays within it, and those are the confines that you must move. Anytime you violate, you get penalized in that, right? So it's a lot of people who want to get technical, show that they got their cum laude degrees, and they tell you all this, oh, you still stuck on that. But you can't tell me that this game still does not function in that game, correct? So we finna talk about this Negro black. But if you're not Negro and if you're not black, then what? Then what is it then? Right? Well, maybe we're gonna find out, right? We're gonna find out. Got love for you too, We Boogie. Glad again once you see you here. Now, so I seen this, so we're gonna start the show off because I'm gonna pose this to it because sometimes we gotta look at we as black folks and the psychology that sometimes we gotta understand where we get some of these thoughts from. Why do we think the way we do? A lot of times we think that a lot of things that we do come from us as indigenous people, right? Indigenous people. Some people try to, go way back in our lineage and grab the African in there and make us be today African to make, for some odd reason, I don't understand as melanated people around the damn world, if we supposed to be the people of the world, why are you trying to confine us to one general location? Let me say that one more again for the paper of the window class. Why is it that if we supposed to be the indigenous people of this world that we call planet Earth, why do you want to landlock us in one place and say that everything that somebody else has told us of how we got to one place to another, and unless they brought us, then that gives us that we're limited. Yes, it may have all the resources in the world. It may got all the most precious metals of the world, but the whole planet Earth, what about the whole planet? So when you landlock us like that, you give actually the back door, as they say, who in the hell let the gate open for everybody to come in? And now they putting the flag right in front of your damn face, and we looking like, well, where the hell we supposed to go? Everybody said, you know, we ain't got no home because we going up in smoke. But maybe if you start to realize that the things that you take as the reality of things, that maybe you didn't, that story that they tell you was to keep you landlocked somewhere and allow everything else to be open for any of their, I guess, interpretations of how they say somewhere to be colonized in the game that they play. So these people who keep mantratizing and telling us, oh man, the only way you gotta be African. We're not anti-African. We pro-us. So what's wrong with having indigenous people from here? Well, it's okay when y'all say indigenous, but anyway, it's like, matter of fact, when you look at like indigenous can never be black people. Yet I told you in the word Negro, indigenous peoples of Africa and their offsprings. So, you can be indigenous being African, but you can't be the indigenous from Africa that went sprouted off throughout the damn world. Why are you trying to bring me back to a place that, again, the name that what they call it, they didn't even call it. Matter of fact, do we even think of colonizing the whole goddamn continent? Is that how we function in our damn mind? That we go around marking our territory like a dog pissing on the damn tree, trying to figure it out, letting the other animals, oh, this is my shit. You don't go here, it's my shit, right? We don't function like that. Now, going back in time, we may have done that. But again, when you start looking at these names that they call, are these names of indigenous tongue? You ask yourself that. How does these words, if they go back to an ancient time, how come they don't sound like the language of the way the people would have spoke at the time when they created it? Why sound more like English? Unless English is the indigenous language of the world. Because a lot of people all just naturally give the credit to these other folks as they did it, and yet you talking about they was caveman, oonga boonga, and now suddenly they talking like this. But when you look at all the other places in the world, don't they get right? How you get to and then start talking like the way we talking right now? Somebody lying somewhere, but just stay tuned. We gonna get into all that. But anyway, let me show you something here. Let me get off there right quick. Right? Let me get off of it, right? So I seen this here, right? I seen this. Did y'all see this? Let me take that down there for a little bit so y'all can see that there. Let's have nothing but a re-boogie there, right? Shark Tank's investor Kevin O'Leary dismisses Mark Cuban's claim woke is good business. Let me say that one more again. Kevin O'Leary, those of y'all who ever watched Shark Tank, y'all watch that? See how mugs go up in there and them deals they be willing and dealing? A lot of mugs be getting, you know what I'm saying, robbed with no gun, right? I say with a wooden with no grease, right? They be straight giving their whole company up for a little bit of money to start up, and then they done gave 51% of their company to somebody else just because he gave you the starter pack. Now they get your whole company. So sometimes, you know, you understand when you need to start up, you get that foundation, come up in there and get that money. That's good, but you know, sometimes the negotiation, the way that they really did, they be getting. We understand how they keep staying rich. But in any case, if you've seen the show, you know who these two individuals. And then if you know about NBA, you know about Mark Cuban. Now, according to it said the Shark Tank investor Kevin O'Leary would not put his money on fellow shark Mark Cuban's recent pitch on so-called corporate wokeness. After O'Leary's co-star said wokeness was good business. After boycotts of Target and Bud Light, O'Leary told Fox and Friends on Wednesday that involvement in partisan issues loses 50% of your constituencies. It makes absolutely no sense. And when you're Disney or you're a beer company or you're Target, you have customers of every kind. Republican, Democrat, gender specific, or gender neutral. O'Leary said, he said, it didn't matter or doesn't matter. You want to sell everybody everything all the time. O'Leary, whose 400 million net worth pales in comparison to Cuban's multi-billions of dollars, said the roles of corporations is not to educate society on the social issues of the day, and instead to serve customers, their employees, and their shareholders. When you lose 9 to 10, 11, 12 billions of market cap, you know that you offended somebody, and that person is your customer. That's bad business, really bad business, he said. Now, you know, a lot of times we got a lot of our people who black, and they talk about their business, right? So let's look at this. Let's look at this dynamic here. Okay? Now, is this business or is there some kind of like race in there as well? Or is it kind of a little both? Right? Is it a little both? Some race in there as well, is it, right? Think about it. Okay, so when he says that he's not cool with the fact that Mark Cuban is claiming that woke is good business, we know that woke in itself has been racialized, been politicized, and when we see the word woke, we know that's really anti-being about really us, but they done threw in the bag, you know, like going to the grocery store and they put in, sometimes somebody put the wrong stuff in your bag, then put some extras in your bag, you know, till you go home. But then did you charge me for that? So they might be charge you for that. You didn't realize they gonna slip that up in the bag on you, you know, because really wokeism had something to do with the things that we were talking about when it came to about reparations and, you know, police reform and things like that. And then some people slid in LGBT and gender specific and all that stuff, right? And again, just like what Aaron Coulter said about commandeering black civil rights, right? The black civil rights was specifically about that particular group doing its fight because of what had been done to them. But it seems like every other group now has found a way to put their tentacles and siphon out for their own portion, right? So we get there. All right. So now the thing is this: Mark Cuban's primary business, what he would talk about woke, is what? I mean, he as a multi-billion-dollar billionaire, he has a lot of investments in a lot of things. So we just say that, again, woke would be, let's say, from the NBA standpoint, where they try to go out there and they was doing a little rah-rah for NBA. So O'Leary is saying half of your business. Now, again, is that half because anti-woke is who? When we get into the racial aspect of anti-woke, we're going to be who? Right? We know who anti-woke is. So he automatically is attributing the fact that you make the stance on woke, that half of them, and matter of fact, we're going to get into a little bit later, and as I go more on the show, we're going to get specific about them numbers, about something that had came up on something that I'm going to talk about, and we're going to come back to that point, make that a mental mark. We're going to come back to that point because to say half, and then seeing that the numbers that they really are, and then yes, when you come to talking about dollars, yeah, their bottom line will be affected because it is that many more people who have identified in that group, right? But that other group, as you say, woke, is basically what they call, well, I guess from political, the left, right? Those who, you know, LGBT, black, so-called, well, I guess we can't even say no more minority groups. I guess you're gonna find out in this show too that ain't true no more either. But we would say minority groups, gender groups, black groups, brown groups, all the other groups, right? So that means that this other group, is it from a business standpoint, what Mark Cuban's saying is, well, that group seems to be bigger. And if you understand that since the video I did back in April 1st of 2014, this other group is diminishing. It is getting smaller. It's encompassing other people that are now classifying themselves on the census and clicking it. Yes, they are doing that. But from the business aspect, or was it O'Leary showing his allegiance to him peoples who's anti-woke and say, we stick in, thin out. Now, my thing is black people, we as black people, You know, there's those people who will tell you about business, and then they start having this little kickstand move where they say, well, I don't get into all that race because money green, and it don't matter who it is, right? That sounds good. That's practical business etiquette, right? That's what you said. Like he said, everybody, you sell to anybody and everybody who's willing to give you $1. Now, let me ask y'all the question to that. As a black business, are you patronized by everybody around the globe? Or do you primarily focus or maybe more your customer, depending on what kind of business you got, right? Depending on the kind of business you got. Are your customers primarily black? Is that if you had to rely solely on black, and that's why a lot of them don't really advocate solely for black when they talk about getting black business or something, they don't really advertise and let's say put the megaphone out there and say they for black business only, because they know that's gonna stop up what white business they get. Now, from a black perspective, you can't rely on trying to be black when your people, a lot of them don't have the funds like that. So you have to be that. But see, when we look at history and how when it came to when they didn't want you in their stores, that didn't hurt their bottom dollar, did it not? They already had all the damn money. So your extra money was just made extra money on it. So it's like when we gave up our business going back in history as black people, we gave up our opportunity to expand within ourselves by now taking our dollars out from us and giving it to other people, and then allow them to expand and build, and then have more control on as to whether we get certain things, have certain things, or have to come to them through them to get it. Right or wrong, right? So Mark Cuban is saying, hey, I got a black base and these other group base, and so the corporates are they going to them. Now you're saying that half of them, but he knows also too, this group is getting smaller. And even though that you're getting these so-called $5 white folks in your group, but they're not going to follow the same script as you as time get on, as they learn the game, they're going to start monopolizing for themselves. And then as you getting smaller, you may got the dollars, but again, it's like, say, for instance, let's look at the NBA with Mark Cuban. Yes, white people probably the biggest ticket holders in that game. They buy more season tickets and all that other stuff, right? But when it comes to apparel, shoes, McDonald's, and all them other things, who you think are the bigger consumers when it comes to that? They might buy a pair of Jordans once in 20 years, but this other people, oh, they buy a lot. They wear jerseys, hats, right? They watch the TV games so that you get the commercial money as well, right? So like he said, good business for him, business. But Leary was showing you racial allegiance. He would say, hey, man, your peoples, right? Your peoples. That's what you probably be about what your people's on, right? Okay. So this kind of depends where you stand, because a lot of times our people say all money, good money, but we the only people that have to be sitting there saying, hola Salimo, when you come in there, right? You can have the same kind of store and they won't pay you. You don't see no Chinese coming in black stores buying nothing. You don't see Hispanic people coming in black stores buying nothing. You don't see them other people coming in, running up in there. You ain't got nothing they really want that they can't get somewhere else. But when it comes to us, see, right? So we don't have the luxury really to say what we can and what we cannot do. Because again, by us having the history we had, many of us don't have the dollars and cents to keep patronizing. It's kind of like the same thing again, like the brother 0620 do, Mr. Spencer. If I had 5, 10 more brothers like him every time, hey, it may change my situation overnight. But because what he do and the help he do, always gonna be gratitude for that. You get what I'm saying? And that's the same thing when it comes to black businesses. We don't have the luxury to say whether we want somebody else or not. Matter of fact, when you look at civil rights, that's all civil rights was all about. It's about having public businesses, schools, and government buildings not discriminate against you to come in there. That's all civil rights was or is. not to discriminate you directly. But if it's a private business, you cannot force them. Even if you sue them, they're going to find a way it's unconstitutional, so forth, and all that other stuff. So all this talk about civil rights and all that, it's all it was really, in the end, is nothing but not discriminating against you publicly in your face. We'll take your dollar, right? See, that's what it was. We gave up our dollars, but in the exchange, nobody don't come bring their dollars in us. They'll come watch us. Like, we'll have handlers, managers, owners that we work for, and they patronize for them to come see you entertain them, right? But when it comes to like your own black business, 100%, they ain't patronizing us like that. So you see that the conversation here between Kevin Leary and Mark Cuban, it seems business, but there's also race intertwined up in this. So I just wanted to bring that to start the show off, because that's what we got to say. This allegiance we need, right? We always say unification, and talking about own code, but you got to also ask yourself too, when you have a motley group of black people, motley mixed group, right? Motley, and we all come from different geographical locations in this particular place, and you come from different slave systems, right? Under different ownerships. How is it they think just because we all live here that it's going to be easy to formulate under one when the places that they came from didn't even do it? And so they say, as we're going to go on, I'm going to show you something about a conversation they had, but that's why it's so hard for us, because sometimes certain people are doing things because that's for their group, but when it's something that brings ostracism, the one group that's going to get all the ostracism is the main group, that is that which is we, the Black Americans. And so we don't get to identify who really doing all the fuck shit, the bad shit. We just get to put in our box. And then all the things that's good, people know how to separate and say, it's us and not them. You know, it's like taking credit and say we had the first black president. Do we really honestly get to say the first black president for Black Americans, African Americans, indigenous, indigenous, Niji, so forth? Was that really our man? Or was it a symbolism to the catchphrase African American and Melina everybody? You get what I'm saying? So we have to really look at that. I know some people don't want to get it because, oh man, you and they do. No, man, we have to be real about this. Shit getting hot, four walls closing. And so, you know, when you have a life preserver, like other people got life preservers, they got a place they can float to, fly to, go back to. When you don't got that, so you're going to have to find a way to get with them who under that same circumstance, because they understand the totality of that fight. Anyway, so, you know, when they get one of us, they use it for whatever the position they need you for. I seen this here with Stephen A. Smith having a conversation with Sean Hannity. And I want y'all to hear this and be right back. Check this out.
I'd vote for him before I'd vote for any of the Democratic candidates that I've seen. But that's not the same when it comes to DeSantis or Trump. But when it comes to him, I know that's what position I'd take. I'm a registered independent. You understand?
Right,
and that's what I would take.
Then,
that's how I feel about it.
Why is it you see it, I see it, the world sees it? That is, Joe Biden is, you know, weak, frail, and cognitively he's out to lunch. Why can't Democrats just admit that simple truth?
Well, because he's the candidate, number one, that they deem capable of beating Donald Trump, which he's already proven, whether people want to admit that or not. That's number one. Number two, and more importantly, I'm not going to sit up there and label our president in those derogatory fashions. What I will say is this. I'm not engaging in ageism.
I'm not asking for derogatory comments. Do you think he's a cognitive mess?
I didn't say you were.
Do you think he's a cognitive mess?
I'm not going to say he's a cognitive. I'm not going there. What I can say to you is that I think there's an abundance of people who could do better. And I hate the fact that in the year
Stephen A.
2023 that we have a bunch of liberal candidates out there that thinking he's the guy. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you?
For being straightforward, blunt, truthful, and honest. And you can't speak the obvious that Joe Biden's a cognitive mess. Of course he's a cognitive mess.
I'm not going to label, excuse me, I'm not going to label it that way, Sean. What I'm going to tell you is this. I'm looking at him, and I don't like what I see. I'm not impressed with what I've seen. I've been very concerned with what I've seen. And the fact that he's going to be 82 years of age at election time, if he were to win an election, and he'd be in the White House until he's 86 years old, I think in the year 2023, it is utterly embarrassing that the liberal side has him as their best candidate. What does it say about you when that is the best candidate that you can give the left? That is ridiculous. That's not a knock against Joe Biden, more so than it's an indictment against the Democratic Party.
It took a little push. Now I got Stephen A. coming out of his shell. I was waiting for that. All right, now let me move on to Live Golf.
I'd vote for him before I'd vote.
Hold on, my mic got cut. All right, there we go. So that was Stephen A. Smith having a conversation with Sean Hannity, and they were talking about Joe Biden. You know, again, see, like I said, as white people have the luxury to be able to say he's cognitive dysfunction and he's right. He can do that, right? Stephen A. Smith, no, he can't really say that. He said, matter of fact, you see him he got caught, right? He got caught when he was saying that he was making sure he didn't slip up, right? What did he say? He said,
excuse me, I'm not going to label it that way, Sean. What I'm going to...
He got caught up a little bit, didn't he? Hold on, one more again.
Excuse me, I'm not going to label it that way, Sean. What I'm going to tell you is this.
Do that, right? See, we don't have the luxury. When you get paid by them, you don't got the luxury, even though it might be the truth. It's kind of like, again, it's like We Up Report, Mr. Blow Your Mind. You think why I'm down here suppressed the way I am? It's because why? Maybe I'm saying some stuff, people say, hey, you ain't got the right to be saying that. Who you think he is, right? You ain't no damn body. Of course. Well, let the beavers get off the dam and let the flow come through. And let's find out. Well, you ain't going to do that. But anyway, so I'm just saying, look, when they pay you, again, when you're getting that dollars, you don't have the luxury to be able to say, you don't, all good dollars are good dollars, right? Because if you say the wrong thing, then he's going to have his shit going to be clogged up and he won't be working and getting nothing. He'd be down here with 100 views like me. You get what I'm saying? So all I'm saying is that what was funny was Sean Hannity laughed. He put you in that situation, and it was kind of, any of y'all remember watching Archie Bunker? You remember when Lionel Jefferson would come over to Archie Bunker's house, right? Because he was cool with Mike Stivic and them, and he would razz it up with Archie, right? And he would always tickle Archie when he said, "Electrica in the ear," right? But and that's how you heard Sean Hannity laugh when he said, "I'm not liking what." Yeah, it tickled him, right? It tickled him to say that somebody in your caliber who is supposed to be truthful and stuff, you couldn't say it. He had to wind you up to get you finally to get there so that you could be true, because he can't say that because it can hinder his dollars. And that's the same thing about the business, that when we have black people know they can't really cater, say, for blacks only, because they know that's going to stop up them dollars. So their whole position is all dollars is good dollars, just like O'Leary. But see, O'Leary don't have to do that. He just said, we won't even say nothing there, because automatically you're going to lose half. Now, what half was he talking about? Oh, that one half who's anti-woke. And so, people are conscious when they play that game. They understand what that is all about, right? So now I'm going to show you when they go get somebody else. And this time, they're going to talk about the things when we talk about reparations. And when we talk about reparations, you're talking about, again, Niji, indigenous, autochthonous Moors, Black Americans, African Americans, all the different names that we hold until we get to a unison of what we're going to be called and what we're going to be identified, and we're going to come as one. So all those who be mad about, oh, we not this, we not that. Remember, people coming at different levels of understanding. Be patient. If you can't be patient, then when they get there, they'll see you when they get there. Right? If you be there or they get there, right? So be patient. A lot of times, some of the you new ones that just got here yesterday, you don't understand that people prior before you came from systems of, there may have been libraries, but if you didn't have people who were, let's say, a little bit educated or come from the school of research, and otherwise, when you went to the damn library, you picked the book based on the way it looked. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you pick the book because the way it looked, not so much about what it said, because you didn't know nothing about what they were talking about or what it was. So you got an adventure. Now, some people who read about Malcolm, because they see Malcolm on it and they knew about Malcolm, that was an easy one to get. But a lot of the other ones, because see, I think there is a big gap between those who come from people who have several generations of educated people versus those of us who come from people who come with the first time somebody ever went to college. First time somebody who just got out of graduated out of high school. That's why you see them doing so much with the little celebration even when they get out of kindergarten, right? Because they may not get to through high school, and they get to high school, they may not get to college, right? So it seems like people have a stain and have a problem, because really when you say Negro, who is really the Negro? Because a lot of people jump off that and say it's about status, so that they don't have to be labeled in that Negro group. Because matter of fact, all that education that you get, a lot of that don't even reciprocate into the white world unless you're a big, good kiss, right? You do all that, you know what I'm saying? Now, I'm not saying that it's a business that you may get, but somewhere down the line, you are, let's say, you're merging with other people so you can get the bigger dollar. It's like being a lawyer. You could be a black lawyer, and there's plenty of business, right? There's plenty of business. Niggas go out in the motherfucking jail like 40 going north, right? Going to jail like 40 going north. So you got plenty of business, but it ain't gonna get no, it's not lucrative. You understand? It's not gonna be lucrative. So you have to start getting to firms that with these big accounts, with these big white collar crooks and things like that, and make bigger money, right? So it's plenty work, but you ain't gonna get rich. So a lot of them know they have to go all these other places to get them dollars, and they know they do that, but nobody really want to talk about that, right? So anyway, so here it is. We're going to show you this, and here's two people. They're supposed to be having a debate about reparations. Check this out. I'll be right back.
Saw earlier, reparations is a hugely divisive issue. A Pew Research poll taken in late 2021 found that by a more than 2-to-1 margin, Americans oppose reparations for African Americans. And look at the racial split. Whites overwhelmingly oppose reparations, 80%. But the numbers are almost exactly reversed among African Americans who strongly support the idea. So joining me now is Cornel William Brooks. He's a professor of the practice of public leadership and social justice at the Harvard Kennedy School. He's also a former president and CEO of the NAACP. And Coleman Hughes is a columnist and host of the Society and Culture podcast, Conversations with Coleman. Both of you have agreed to essentially lightly debate this issue with me as playing my role of moderator here. So, Cornel Brooks, let me start with you. You've been studying this for quite some time, and you've been working with some religious leaders to come up, I think it's fair to say, a modern blueprint of what you think, what would reparations look like in the 21st century? Make the case.
That's right. So I've had the pleasure and honor of working with both the National Council of Churches and the Union of Reform Judaism and a group of Harvard Kennedy students, Kennedy School students, who are working with these large religious associations all across the country, representing over 40 million people, to create a moral discourse on reparations. Why? Because we know that in many corners of our republic, it's being politically weaponized. And they're endeavoring to make, I'd say, 3 key points here. The first of which is, with respect to reparations, you often hear that the harm was too long ago, it's too expensive, and too impossible, too difficult to do. What we find is the harm was not long ago, right? So in other words, yes, slavery ended in 1863 and 1865, but the convict leasing system, representing 1 million people enslaved, lasted up until the opening days of World War too, right? And all of these systems of oppression continue into the present, point one. Point two, with respect to reparations being too difficult. I want to know something here, Chuck, that's critically important. My colleague, Linda Bilmes, who's a public economist at the Harvard Kennedy School, we've done a study, and we looked at all of these programs across the federal government, and we make the case that we're already doing reparations. We simply don't call it that. So in other words, there's a norm in government which essentially says, if an American has been harmed through no fault of their own, the government will often step in to try to make them whole. We do this not only with respect to Japanese Americans who were interned after World War II, but we also do it with respect to veterans, with respect to people who suffered in a natural disaster. We do it with respect to children who've been harmed by vaccines. We do it with respect to pensions that are insured. So we do this over and over again, which says that we can do it. And lastly, we do it at the level of millions, billions, even trillions of dollars. So we can't afford to do it.
All right, Coleman Hughes, let me bring you in here. You testified before Congress in 2019 against the idea of reparations. You said paying reparations to descendants of slavery would, quote, only divide the country further. And you thought it would insult black Americans by putting a price on the suffering as well, and would make black Americans like yourself victims without their consent. I hope I captured that correctly, but you take it further. Make your case against.
So let me just make a distinction off the bat. I support reparations for redlining, right? Because there are many victims of redlining that are still with us. They're still alive. And Cornel, all the examples of successful reparations for other groups that you highlighted were examples of reparations given to directly the victims of these human rights abuses in their lifetimes or their immediate family members. That's why I support reparations for redlining paid directly to the victims, as they're doing in Evanston outside of Chicago. I make a distinction between that and reparations for slavery, which ended in 1865. I know of no examples where groups are getting reparations for historical crimes that are over 150 years old. And unfortunately, the opportunity was tragically missed to pay it to the slaves themselves or their immediate families. But claims like this time out, right? And this is timed out. And let me say one more thing. Martin Luther King had a plan for addressing the legacy of slavery, which he laid out in his book, Why We Can't Wait. And he called it the Bill of Rights for the Disadvantaged. The Bill of Rights for the Disadvantaged was not a race-based policy. It was a class-based anti-poverty program that would benefit the black poor and the white poor and the poor of all races. That's what I support in terms of addressing the legacy of slavery. That's what I feel is the wisest path forward for this country.
Let me follow up a little bit, Coleman, because it is interesting that there are some forms of specific areas where you believe a reparation of sorts should be put there. How do you distinguish Jim Crow? And what is the right amount of time? And I say that Germany is still paying reparations to now descendants of Holocaust victims. So what is the timeline where you feel like where you would draw the line?
So I think reasonable people can disagree on this, and I don't claim to have the last word on the subject, but I think we can all agree reparations should be paid ideally in the lifetime of the victim. If the victim dies, it should be paid to their spouse or to their children. Once you get to grandchildren and beyond, my personal view is that that's beyond my line. But like I said, reasonable people can disagree on this, but there's no doubt that, in my view, crimes from the 1850s and 60s are beyond the statute of limitations.
Do you
All right, so we back, right? Okay, so all right, we heard that, right? You heard that, right? All right, so you got one individual there. That's Cornel Williams Brooks. That was that first brother, and he was just saying things to the fact that he believed that reparation is being politically weaponized. And we can see that. I think we see that where people are using it to yay and nay and trying to tell us why they should, and people saying that. So politically, it finally got to a point where last election, you heard a lot of the Democrats say, I'm for reparations. Remember that you hear Pocahontas and Kamala Harris and all of them. They was all saying that reparations finally hit mainstream national. But that was all they said, was something, words that just came out of their mouth, trying to get people to vote for them. And so here's an individual who was 4 generations of pastors or reverends in this family. So that means his father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and himself. He's 4 lines, and he's also a lawyer. And he was the CEO and president of the NAACP. And he tried to his ability to try to defend to some point, right? He said there was 3 key points that some people would argue about the facts about reparations, that too long ago, right? Too long ago. What does that mean, too long ago? What does that even mean, too long ago? Then he said it's too expensive. It's too expensive. Well, if it's too expensive and people's want to deny or say it's not possible to deal with, if you're saying it's too expensive, then that group who that pertains to, that means there's a lot they missed out on. If it's too big to pay, remember when they was talking, when Obama became president, they said $777 billion went to the bankers, and they said that the banks were too big to fail. But goddamn, black folks ain't too big to fail, right? Nobody got a problem with black folks being too big to fail. It's just, well, just suck it up, right? Too expensive. And then he said it's impossible. What's impossible? Has this country not lived up to every expectation that it has always adventured to do? What's impossible? When you say you are the most grandest, richest ever in the history of the world, what's impossible? Or is it impossible because maybe you don't want to do it, right? You know, I have a pet peeve when I see people always keep saying slavery ended. He said 1863, right? Ask yourself, imagine this. A boulder, put that brother up on there so that so they see who we're talking about, right? Right, put them up on screen. Let's say a boulder on whatever highest mountain you know about, and say the boulder comes down the mountain. There's a town at the foot, at the bottom of it. Can you stop the momentum of the boulder just because you say, all right, y'all gonna be safe, the boulder's gonna miss you? Is that gonna stop the force, gravity, rotation towards that city? Or is it still has to go through its motion to end its velocity before it comes to a complete stop? The town still may get ran through, correct? So they want us to believe. The reason why I'm saying that, y'all, is this. People want us to believe when they say the word slavery ended, it's like the boulder. It's like saying that everybody who participated, life was involved, all that was intertwined in that, they just dropped everything. Was like, all right, you guys won. It's over. Come on, this all right, it's over with. All right, black people just be free, you know, right? That's the way they act like. That just shows me, again, a lot of people who will not want to admit that, okay, one, you are part of the people, or two, your people immigrated here. You ran from somewhere else. You came to a place to be refuge from. Why don't you return the favor for the people who built and gave you a place to come to? Why is that the hardest thing for y'all in your mind? And then many say, we're not racist, but I'm going to show you beg to differ. I'll put that back on the screen. Put that back on the screen. I don't want them just seeing that, bro. Put that back on the screen. Yeah, put that back on the screen. Right? Because remember, he pulled out that pole. right? He pulled that poll out, right? Let me show you some math here, y'all. Let's take, because they like pulling out the poll like it's statistically, all right, statistically, right? So the views of reparation, they said all adults, right? 30, right? 30%, 60 against 68, right? And then look at the people who they polled. Says white and black. There's nothing else, right? White and black. So I'm okay. Well, wait. Okay, white and there's only white and black. That's not white people. That's not Hispanic people. That's not Asian people. That's not. It was white people, black people. Just two groups. Okay, all right. So let's look at this. People who are for it, white people, 18%. Against it, 80%. Okay? 80% to 18. But I'm not going to use the poll. We're going to use the country. Let me show y'all something. 77% of black folks, 17 against it. Okay. We got about over 15% of our people, according to this poll, who are against it, right? And he's one of them, right? That Coleman Hughes, right? Now, let me show y'all something. Let me show you something. So let's say if we took this as the population of the country. Let's say this poll represented this country entirely. We all put our vote in. So accordingly, if we say that when you do the research, you'll see that there's 331,900,000 people in the entire United States. Okay? And let's say, according to this poll, 80% of white people are against it. All right. So out of 331,900,000 people, if we say that they said there's 75.5% white people out of that 331,900,000 people, that's going to bring you to 200,467,600 people. So we took the whole group and broke that down. So they said out of 331 million people, there's going to be 200,000 white people. Okay? And then you take that number and say, because the poll said 80%. So we took the 80% of the 200 million people. Guess how much what we going to get? Matter of fact, let me take that back. 75.5% of the 331.9 million is actually 250,584,500,000 white people. If you took 80% of that number, that means that it's 200,467,600 white folks who don't go for reparations. 200 million white folks wouldn't be cool with giving black folks reparations. Now, you remember they always keep saying, Ken Scott, this is not a racist country. Yeah, all right. So now 331,900,000, if you took 13.6% of that, which is supposed to be representing black people, that's only going to give you a total of 45,138,400 black people in this country. 45,138,400 all black people. And if you took according to that poll and you said, well, we're going to take 77% of that number, which is going to bring you to 34,756,568. So 34 million black people versus 200 million white folks, and y'all tell us ain't no racism in this country. Oh, huh? That is actually almost 6 times bigger than the whole number of the 34 million. That's 6 times bigger according to the number they use as white folks. And they telling us, based on this, oh no, ain't no racism in this country. If I take that poll and break it down like that, that's what that represents. 200 million white folks will be like, no, we're not going to give them no reparations. And even though they say 77%, but remember, we only a total of 45 million. So you can only get about 34 million out of that 45 million that's forage. You see what I'm saying? So when they give you these percentage, now let's use a real base number, and then now let's see this 200 million versus this 34 million, and then everyone will tell us that it's a figure of our imagination about the things we talk about, what we see on the daily. That's what they want us to believe, y'all. Oh, that's what they want to believe. And I know people gonna run up out here because you don't want to hear that. It's all good though, right? Of course you don't want to hear that. They don't want to see that. They don't want you to give no truth. They want to say, well, the poll only get maybe 1,000. No. Fuck the 1,000. We're going to take it the whole number. We're going to go with the whole number. Since you want to throw percentages at us, well, let's take it for the whole number then, right? So ain't that something? Now, let me show you something, how that young, what's his name, that Coleman Hughes, right? Throw Coleman up there. Throw Coleman up there, right? Coleman Hughes, right? This cat is half Puerto Rican and supposed to be half Black American, maybe. I don't know. But I know one side of him is Puerto Rican. That doesn't mean that because he's Puerto Rican, he anti-Black, but the rhetoric that he's stating tells us everything we need to know. Then he tried to be slick, and I'm going to give y'all something here of something he said in that conversation, other than what he said. He went to Martin Luther King, and he talked about how Martin Luther King talked about the Bill of Rights. Let me show you what he's talking about, y'all. Let me show you what he's talking about. He's talking about when Martin Luther King, no, not that one, not that one. This one here, that one, this one, right? The American Negro, a Bill of Rights for the disadvantaged, okay? That's what that's talking about. The American Negro, a Bill of Rights for the disadvantaged. Now listen to what it says here. This is what Martin Luther King was talking about. There's a literal depression in the Negro community. When you have mass unemployment in Negro community, it's called a social problem. When you have mass unemployment in the white community, it's called a depression. The fact is there's a major depression in the Negro community. Now he wrote this back in 1967. We need an economic bill of rights. This would guarantee a job to all people who want to work and are able to work. It would also guarantee an income for all who are not able to work. Some people are too young, some people are too old, some are physically disabled, and yet in order to live, they need an income. We feel that much more building of housing for low-income people should be done. On the educational front, the ghetto schools are in bad shape. In terms of quality, often they are so far behind that they need more and special attention. The best quality education they can be given. Okay? Let me go on. See, I got some technical difficulties over here. Right? Which is crazy. It's all, yeah, I kind of figured this was going to do this, right? See, I want you to hear these words that Martin Luther King, and see, the thing is, he's going to use them. And by him using them, I'm going to show you, again, these people should not be advocating on behalf of us, especially in the position that he holds. So Martin Luther King goes on and says, these problems, of course, are overshadowed by the Vietnam War. We'll focus on the domestic problem, but it is inevitable that we got to bring out the question of the tragic mixed up in priorities. We are spending all this money for the death and destruction and not nearly enough money for life and constructive development. We hear all this talk about our ability to afford guns and butter, but we have to come to see that this is a myth. That's when a nation becomes involved in this kind of war, when the guns of a war become a national obsession. Social needs inevitably suffers. And we hope that as a result of our trying to dramatize this and getting thousands and thousands of people moving around this issue, that our government will be forced to reevaluate its policies abroad in order to deal with this domestic situation. Okay? Okay, we need to put pressure on Congress to get things done. We will do this with First Amendment activity. If Congress is unresponsive, we'll have to escalate in order to keep the issue alive. And before it, this action may take on disruptive dimensions, but not violent in the sense of destroying life or property. It will be militant nonviolence. Riots tend to intensify the fears of white majority while reliving its guilt, and so open the door to greater repression. We've seen no change in Watts, no structural change have taken place as a result of the riots. We are trying to find an alternative that will force people to confront issues without destroying life or property. We plan to build a shanty town in Washington, patented after the bonus marches of the 1930s, to dramatize how many people have lived in slums in our nation. Okay? These are the words of Martin Luther King. Demonstrators have served as unifying forces in the movement. They have brought blacks and whites together in a very practical situation where philosophically they may have been arguing about black power. It's a strange thing how demonstrations tend to solve problems. Anytime we have a demonstration in the community, people have found a way to slough off their self-hatred, and they have had a channel to express their "no, you're doing something," or their "no, take it back," and they have had a channel to express their longings in a way to fight nonviolently, to get at the power structure, to know you're doing something. So you don't have to be violent to do it. We need this movement. We need it to bring about a new kind of togetherness between blacks and whites. We need it to bring allies together, to bring the coalition of conscience together. I think we have to come to the point where there is no longer a choice now between nonviolence and riot. It must be militant, massive, nonviolent, or riot. This content is so deep, the anger is so ingrained, the despair, the restlessness so wide that something has to be brought into being to serve as a channel through which these deep emotion feelings, these deep anger feelings can be funneled. There has to be an outlet, and I see this campaign as a way to transmute the inchoate rage of the ghettos into a constructive and creative channel. It becomes an outlet for anger. Even if I didn't deal with the moral dimensions and questions of violence versus nonviolence, from a practical point of view, I don't see riots working. But I am convinced that if rioting continues, it will strengthen the right wing of this country, and we'll end up with a kind of right-wing takeover in the cities and a fascist development, which will be terribly injurious to the whole nation. I don't think America can stand another summer of Detroit-like riots without the development that could destroy the soul of the nation and even the democratic possibilities of the nation. I'm committed to nonviolence, absolutely. I'm just not going to kill anybody, whether it is in Vietnam or here. I'm not going to burn down any buildings. If nonviolent protest fails this summer, I will continue to preach it and teach it. I plan to stand by nonviolence because I have found it to be a philosophy of life that regulates not only my dealings in the struggle for racial justice, but also my dealings with people, with my own self. I will still be faithful to nonviolence, but I'm frank enough to admit that if our nonviolent campaign doesn't generate some progress, people are just going to engage in more violent activities. And the discussion of guerrilla warfare will be more extensive. In any event, we will not have been the ones who will have failed. We will place the problems of the poor at the seat of the government of the wealthiest nation in the history of mankind. If that power refuses to acknowledge its debt to the poor, it will have failed to live up to the promise it ensure life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness to its citizens. If this society fails, I fear that we will learn very shortly that racism is a sickness until death. There is an Old Testament prophecy of the sins of the father being revisit upon the third and fourth generation. Nothing could be more applicable to our situation. America is reaping the harvest of hate and shame planted through generations of educational denial, political disenfranchisement, and economic exploitation of its black population. Now, almost a century removed from slavery, we find the heritage of oppression and racism erupting in our cities, with volcanic lavas and bitterness and frustration pouring down our avenues. Black America have been patient, people, and perhaps they could continue patient with but a modicum of hope. But everywhere, time is winding up. In the words of one of our spirituals, corruption in the land, people take your stand. Time is winding up. In spite of years of national progress, the plight of the poor is worsening. Jobs are on the decline as a result of the technological change. Schools north and south are proving themselves more and more inadequate to take the task of providing adequate education and thereby interest into the mainstream of society. Medical care is virtually out of reach of millions of blacks and white people. In Mississippi, children are actually starving. White America has allowed itself to be indifferent to race prejudice and economic denial. It has treated them as a superficial blemishes, but now awakes to the horrifying reality of a potentially fatal disease. The urban outbreaks are a fireball in the night, clamorously warning that the seams of our entire social orders are weakening under strengths of neglect. The American people are affected with racism. That is the pearl. Paradoxically, they are also infected with the democratic ideal that it is the hope. While doing wrong, they have the potential to do right. But they do not have a millennium to make changes, nor have they a choice of continuing in the old ways. The future they are asked to inaugurate is not so unpalatable that it is justified the evils that besets the nation. To end poverty, to expurgate prejudice, to free a tormented conscience, to make a tomorrow of justice, fair play, and creativity, all these are worthy of the American ideal. We have, through massive nonviolent action, an opportunity to avoid a national disaster and create a new spirit of class and racial harmony. We can write another luminous moral chapter in American history. All of us are on trial in this troubled hour, but time still permits us to meet the future with a clear conscience. Okay? This was a Martin Luther King, American Negro Bill of Rights for the Disadvantaged. I think this is what got him killed, right? And so when you heard the dude that was talking, what's his name, Coleman Hughes, was referring to what Martin Luther King said of the Bill of Rights, we understand the sentiment that's being said, what Martin Luther King is saying. But, you know, the thing is unconstitutional when you don't include everybody. So that is the one reason why they always won't deal with us specifically, because it becomes unconstitutional. So we see that King is using black and whites as a coalition to deal with, as he said, poverty, bad education, which predominantly is more with us than anybody else. And so bringing them together for that reason. So he's using that. Coleman Hughes is using that to say that's what he believes in the reparations that should be done. Okay, that's what he was saying. So what I did is I read that for you so that you would know what he was talking about. So a lot of times people will tell things, but then leave it to you, but I won't leave it to you. I'm going to read it for you. And if you need to go back and do more research, you can do more. But I read to you what the Bill of Rights speech that was done by Martin Luther King and what he was addressing, that this young man who said he's for redlining, he's okay with the redlining, but he's not cool with, as he said, there's a statute of limitation when it comes to paying back people who you have never paid. Right? Now let me show y'all something here, right? Let me show you. They're gonna try to block that one. There, no, now you're gonna block this one. I'm up on that one. You see this chart that you see on there? That chart shows you the generation from which you come out of. And if you're saying that King is talking about this in 1967, that's pretty much right as Generation X is being born. Gen X, as you see on your screen there, comes in about what, 65? So these will be the children of King and what he was talking about. And now Gen X is now turning into grandparents. And the speech that he spoke at the time that they were coming into the world, until what we see today, those words are actually mirroring what is still happening right now. The people will try to make it about other things. They keep saying, oh, the children can't read. Violence is happening throughout the city. Family structure is in a rent. So we have to say, okay, we understand that. But what we know is who you owe you cannot have a timeline. You can't say, the young man says that a statute of limitations and that only people who was there in their lifetime should get paid. Well, let me show you something, young man. Let me show you something. So let's say that, okay, you're saying that 1865 slavery was over and that it stopped, it ended. It's just like last week when I talked about Juneteenth. And the truth of Juneteenth was, yes, people of Texas celebrate Juneteenth. And there's nothing wrong with celebrating Juneteenth. But the truth of what the history that really entails about that story is not the truth. It is the shame this country doesn't want to show how they keep perpetuating and making up stuff because they're ashamed of what they know they've done, but yet you don't want to do nothing about it. See, to say 1863, which is the first one says, right? The first individual said, which was at Cornel Williams, right? He said in 1863, slavery stopped. He was also the CEO of NAACP. That is a lie. We all know this is a damn lie. And then he says, this one here says, this Coleman Hughes says, slavery stopped in 1865. As I gave you the analogy of a boulder coming down a mountain, how does something that had been rolling down the mountain can just stop in its track just because you say 1863, 1865? Why did you have Jim Crow? Why did you have Reconstruction? Why did you have the civil rights? Because the boulder was still rolling. Yeah, you may have the words saying that something stopped, but what about the practice? The practice didn't stop. So here it is, somebody who's born of a more modern time, talking about the people of, he said, well, that's over 150, 160 years ago, and none of them are still living. That's just a kickstand and not deal with it. But the boulder kept rolling. So that means that the policy went over to the next generation and to the next generation and to the next generation. Because why? You did not pay bills. Have a bill and don't pay. Either cut it off, right? Either they're going to cut it off, you have no more service. But in this case, let me show you something. He mentioned that Obama, he said the government apologized to Black America. Let me show y'all some slickness here. Let me show y'all the slickness. See on your screen there? What you see on your screen there? You see on your screen? That is the House Resolution 194, apologizing for the enslavement and racial segregation of African Americans, right? They put it in a bill, right? Do you know what a bill looked like when it go through the process through Congress and the House and the Senate when they pass for as a law? What do you see on your screen and what does it say? Those who are avid watchers of my show, remember when I showed you, we have a message from the president. Remember that? There's a message from the president. And he made this speech, and then the secretary, I have a message from, right? They did this formality, and then what ended up happening? They all got up and walked out. And you see what it says on there? Do you see what it says that what they did? That's what they did. They walked out of there. They didn't do anything. There was never no apology. So that means if you was back in the days, we rode a cab and it had a meter. If you rolled the cab and they say you're going to run into here right quick and come back out, well, the cab will sit there and the meter is still running, because you ain't done nothing. But you want to make this legislation for somebody like Coleman, Hughes to say America did apologize to Black America. There it go right there. Did they? Did they? And let me show you some slickness that the individual who you want to get credit say that he inaugurated and made this holiday that y'all just celebrated last week. You know how long that's been sitting in there? Oh, you don't know, do you? Oh, let me show you something. Do you see that? Juneteenth was sitting in the Congregational Records, volume 153, number 99, since June 19, 2007. He pulled that one out his bag to try to give you something, say, look, I'm giving you something. It was sitting in the shelf for 16 years. When they was talking about this, it was already sitting on the shelf. But they didn't want to come out and tell everybody because they didn't fulfill the part of the apology. So they had this as part of it, but they didn't bring it out because why? You didn't fulfill what you said here. You didn't fulfill it. Y'all walked out of it. Just walked out and didn't do it no more and it never came back up. So here come when this cat become president, he goes on the shelf, pulls it out and says, look, I'm giving you Juneteenth. It's been sitting on the shelf since 2007. What about the other part to it? What about the apology? Huh? What happened to the apology? Don't want to even apologize. Because you know, the minute you start to apologize, what happens next? Right? Don't even want to do that. So, last part, he says, he knows no time that they paid after 150 years. You know why? What they call it? What that was that new rule that came up? I forgot. It slips my mind. But we'll be the blueprint. So basically, what they're saying is we being the blueprint about what happened to somebody being subjugated for over 150 years and never paid them. The next time that happens, they'll get paid because we'll be like the blue script that they can use now for their cases. It's in law. It's something to do with those cases. It slips my mind. But y'all, I think some of y'all know what I'm talking about. How a case that helps somebody else, but you have to be the first, you have to be the case after that, and it has to be similar to it so you can use it against, I think it's against qualified immunity. That's it. For qualified immunity, you have to have a preceding case so that you can use that case so that you can use it to apply in your case. So since we are the blueprint, we can't use it. We got to wait for somebody else to come by and they get to use it. That's what they basically saying. That's what they saying. Ain't that something, man? Ain't that something, right? So you know what all that really is, man. That's just the people here. Just basically, you know, when they close up and they want to get close to these people and rub elbows with them. It's basically just what it is.
See, when this war's over, things are gonna change. And I want him to be ready for it. I'm sending some big white college. Let him rub elbows with the whites. Learn the white man's language, how he does things.
White don't rub off.
Well, what we gonna do? Stay behind and everything? Hell, you can see it there in the army. White man running rings around him.
A lot of us ain't had the chance them white boys had, Sarge.
Oh, that ain't no excuse. My daddy shoveled coal from the back of a wagon all his life. Couldn't read or write, but he saw to it that we did. Now, not having is no excuse for not getting.
Can't get pee from a tree, Sarge.
You're just like the rest of them, Wilkie. Ignorant. Scared. Stop thinking like a nigger.
So we are back, right? Now, remember in the thumbnail you said saying the word Negro, right? Let me show you something, right? As we talked about Barack Obama, did y'all know that Barack Obama had took that word Negro off, right? Did y'all know that? That Barack Obama took the word Negro out, but it was really not the front of it. See, this is the thing about what we, as we're awakened as Black people, to become more astute about politics. And then again, these things that are symbolic that people give us, or flowery words that look like they doing something, but the reality of it is they don't be doing nothing. They don't be doing nothing. So let me show you about when Obama eliminated Negro Oriental from the federal law. Let me say that one more again. Obama signs bill eliminating Negro Oriental from federal law. All right. So let me go ahead and let me show you, just in case some of y'all who didn't know about this, right? Some of y'all may not know. You know, that's what we do at We Up Report over here. We've been in the business. Look like somebody already came over here. I see my let me see something. Hold on, y'all. I see my some motherfucker keep coming bringing his ass over here. Call yourself trying to get my camera. You might as well stop that bullshit, right? Come knock on the door if you want to see me, okay? You understand? You want to see me, you come over here. Hold on, y'all. Let me do this. Hold on. Let me see if they're showing this camera or not, because that's what it looked like. Hold on. All right, let me see if my camera is showing right. Hold on. You do this shit every week. You bring your bum ass over here doing the same ass shit. You're not gonna get that way, dude. Whoever you shall be, right? So that's those again. There we go. We back, right? All right. All right. I know how to do. I know how to deal with that. Yeah, you come over here with that nonsense. Okay. I think you did. Let me see. All right. So let me go ahead. Let me give it to you what this whole thing was about. Because I got some, again, you know, technical difficulty. It's funny how people know they ain't done shit when it comes to something, but they don't like you talking about shit, but yet you ain't done shit. What kind of, you know, a lot of y'all keep telling us, oh, we're good people, we're God-loving, fearing people, but some of y'all just goddamn devils and demons. That's who you really is, and you hate the truth. And you want me to be quiet when y'all ain't right. Anyway, in 1790, they said the United Census counted people by lumping them into one of three categories: slave, free, white, females, and males, and all other free persons. By 1980, the categories had gone through nearly 20 deviations. People could identify as one of the 15 possibilities, including non-derogatory words such as Negro. These classifications might shed some light on why some federal laws from that time contain outdated verbiage that now being addressed. After it was unanimously passed with the 380 votes, President Barack Obama signed H.R. 4238 on Friday, which amended two federal acts from the 70s that define minorities with the terms that are now insensitive or outdated. I see that my camera's still off, huh? All right, you bum ass. You a bum ass. Whoever you is, you're a bum ass. The Department of Energy Act has for decades described minorities as a Negro, Puerto Rican, American Indian, Eskimo, Oriental, Aleut, or is a Spanish-speaking individual of Spanish descent. Okay? The new bill changed the language to Asian American, Native Hawaiian, a Pacific Islander, African American, Hispanic, Puerto Rican, Native American, or an Alaskan Native. There are also similar language in the Local Public Work, Capital Development, and Investment Act. The bill was sponsored by Grace Mean. Now, this is the person who brought the bill. Her Grace Mean, right? She was a Democrat from New York. She came with 74 Democrat co-sponsors and 2 Republican ones. And what they focused on was the word Oriental. Okay? It was Grace Ming who brought this bill that Barack Obama eventually signed. But this is where it started from. Okay? And saying Oriental is an insulting term that needed to be removed from the books. And she was being extremely pleased that the legislation to do that is now the law of the land. That's what she said. And they talked about how the United States Census never used the word Oriental. Okay, it wasn't even used in the census, right? But use this as a precept to get the legislation. This is the same one that's going to actually do the thing that people were talking about when it comes to the Asian hate crime bill. She was part of that too, right? So they talk about how this word became associated in the United States and the exoticism of Asian American stereotypes. Now again, who used Orientals? Wasn't a word that was used on the streets, right? Might have been some words in the book they might have identified at the time, right? But they wanted a new update version to identify who they was, because again, they shaving off who their ancestry is, and they want this new identity, right? And so what happened is, but they're going to connect the fact that they say, well, in the 20th century, they end up dropping the word Negro in the identities in 2013. They said people during the 2010 census, where some people were offended by the term Negro. So they wanted to change it. You remember they had got the term African American. So a lot of them didn't want to be Negroes no more, right? So Barack Obama figured this was a good opportunity to get rid of this Negro term, right? Okay. That's this. Pay attention to this, right? Okay. So again, we got some technical difficulties over here, right? Because we have people who that's what they do. You sit your ass in the background doing fuck shit, and that's makes you happy. But anyway, the directors at the time said 56,000 people doing the research in 1990s written under the other race that they identified as Negro. So the census had to continue to include the word in its 2000 count. In the 2010, people were raising concerns. And so they go through this whole thing about apology. Now, the thing is, this bill originally was brought up by an Asian person, Asian American, Chinese American, however you want to define it. They were putting for themselves to remove Oriental. They said, well, we don't even have that on the census, but by the way, why don't we get Barack Obama? Why don't we get rid of Negro while we at it? And so that's how you get Negro taken off, because of Barack Obama, to help out this person for this legislation, decide to put and take Negro. Now, Negro got something to do with our history. Now, I want to show you something about that word Negro going back, because we talked about earlier about reparations that take you back to 1865. And anytime anybody talk about 1865, they talk about Emancipation Proclamation, which is going to lead you back to who? Abraham Lincoln. So let me show you something about Abraham Lincoln. Okay? Before he was president, Abraham Lincoln and the man who refused to be called Negro. Let me say that one more again. Before he was president, Abraham Lincoln and the man who refused to be called Negro. Okay? Now I want y'all to hear this, right? I want you to hear this. Okay, let's go ahead. I got some technical difficulties over here. And you know you're going to always have them types. That's what they do. They lurk in the darkness to do shit because I don't like what you're saying. We don't like the fuck you're doing. How about that? You don't like the fuck we saying. We don't like the fuck you're doing. So anyway, in 1855, Joseph Spencer was feuding with his sister's husband, William Dungy. As it is often the case with the family feud, things took an ugly turn when Spencer accused his brother-in-law of being a Negro. Even today, some non-U.S. born people consider it an offense to be mistaken to be being a Black American. Did I hear that, y'all? People consider it an offense to be mistaken for being a Black American. So again, those people who say that I'm from these other countries and then they don't want to be Black Americans, they say it's offensive. But anyway, despite the fact that many immigrants also trace their ancestry back to Africa, the Africa continent before the travesty of the slave trade, many are emphatically opposed to the idea of being stripped of their ethno-national identity upon arrival in the United States. For them, to be recognized as an American Black person is a reference to the loss of the ethnic identity and experience with which they refuse or cannot identify. The experimental reality today is born out of the legislative reality of yesterday. When Joseph Spencer accused his brother-in-law of being a Negro, it was more than just an insult. In 1855, it believed by local officials an accusation of being called Negro would have resulted in the loss of his marriage, property, and his right to continue to live in the state of Illinois. Just 2 years earlier, the Illinois legislation passed the Black Codes, following the directive of the 1848 state constitution to pass such laws as will effectively prohibit free persons of color from immigrating and to settling in this state. The legislature not only prohibited free persons of color from immigrating to the state, but they continue to build on the precedents established by other states by declaring that 1/4 Negro blood defines a mulatto or makes a Black man. Now, this is the part I want y'all to try. I want you to see this. Can we put that on the screen there? Put that on the screen there, right? I want you to see these words. Okay, that's what he said there. Okay, the other part ain't there. Okay. Now you seen the words there, right? My client is not a Negro, though it's a crime to be a Negro. Though it is a crime to be a Negro. Abraham Lincoln, Esquire, 1855, right? Now these are the words they said here. Now listen to this. Now we know exactly what a Black person is. He may be the offspring of an African or be the child of a person purely of European extraction. Was another European whose father or mother was an African. Let me say that one more again. Oh, Black ain't just that one, huh? Negro ain't just that one, huh? Oh, okay. Say it again. Now we know exactly what a Black person is. He may be the offspring of an African, offspring of an African, offspring of an African, offspring of an African, or be the child of a person purely of European extraction. Child of a person of a European extraction, child of a purely European extraction, was another European whose father or mother was an African. Who is the Negro? Are you a Negro? Offspring of an African? Child of a person purely of European extraction? Or was another European whose father or mother was African? So that's pure white person with a half-breed white person whose mama or daddy is African. You're a Negro? You're a Negro. All right. Yeah. Was you a Negro? All right, anyway. William Dungy had no choice but to respond what he considered to be a slanderous act. His brother-in-law had dubbed him Black Bill, and it was causing him harm. In October 1854, Dungy retained 46-year-old attorney Abraham Lincoln to respond to his brother-in-law's libel. In April of 1855, Lincoln filed a suit against Spencer, and after some legal wrangling, a hearing was set for the following May. Spencer attorney Clifton H. Moore and Lawrence Weldon immediately went on to build their case against Dungy, which was set for October of 1855. Let me show you that case up there, just in case somebody think that's bull. Let me show what they showed you there. That's just right, okay? So he immediately went out to build their case against Dungy, which they set for October 1855. They traveled back to Dungy's hometown of Giles County, Tennessee, to depose people who claimed to know his family. Now check out what happens, y'all. Check out what happens. Lincoln was prepared for a defense that memorialized his superior legal mind, elevated the complexity of the social construct of race, and emphasized the criminalization of being a Negro or Black person in the United States, despite his client sitting in court with the face of a Black man with a light complexion. Say that one more again. Despite his client sitting in court with a face of a black man with a light complexion, Lincoln's argument was simple. Dungy was not Negro. Let me say that one more again. Dungy was not Negro. He was not black because his ancestry origin was of Portuguese descent, not the ambiguous, non-specific ancestry of being Negro or black. Let me say that one more again for the paper over the window class. Dungy was not a Negro. He was not black because his ancestry origins were of Portuguese descent, not the ambiguous, non-specific ancestry of being Negro or black. Okay, now watch what happens. My client is not Negro, though it is a crime to be a Negro. No crime to be born with a black skin. But my client is not a Negro. His skin may not be as white as ours, but I say he is not a Negro. Though he may be a Moor, M-O-O-R-E. Mr. Lincoln, interrupted by Judge Davis, scarcely able to restrain a smile. You mean more, not more. You mean more like M-O-O-R, not M-O-O-R-E. Well, Your Honor, Lincoln says, more, M-O-O-R, not C-H-M-O-O-R-E, like the lawyer, the client, remember the attorney for the other man's name is Moore. His name Moore. He said, no, not more like M-O-O-R-E. I mean, he's more M-O-O-R, replied Lincoln, swept his long arms towards the table where Moore and he sat. I say my client may be a Moor, M-O-O-R, but he is not a Negro. Then they go into this part here. Slavery still in full effect in much of the nation. Lincoln was not seeking to absolve all people with skin that might be misinterpreted as black of the crime of being Negro. He was simply drawing the distinction that one could identify their ancestry origin as something other than black to a specific culture. People, group, or nation was not subject to the same status that governed those who were or had been marred with the shameful badge of blackness. Despite the defendant's claim that the white community in Dungy's hometown considered he and his family to be a Negro or of mixed blood, Lincoln pointed out that no one who lived within 30 miles of the plaintiff was present to testify to that effect. Lincoln drew the distinction that not only was Dungy not Negro or black, but that he quite possibly was of Moorish ancestry. By way of Portuguese descent, that would account for the skin tone, but separated him from the domestic amalgamation that defined those who were still in or who had emerged from the bonds of American captivity. Scholarship of the ethnic origins of the Moor is quite broad, but Moore agreed that the Moorish people are themselves an amalgamation of the 7th century North African Arab, Sub-Saharan, and West African descent, who migrated to Spain and then Portugal over the next 7 centuries. By the 15th century, the African slave trade in full swing. Portuguese colonies were thriving in South America. By the 16th century, they were arriving in North Africa. This was also the peak of the Ottoman Empire, which found reluctant allies in the slave trade with the European states. Keep that point, y'all. The results of this difficult alliance resulted in the early arrival of the Turks in the New World. By the 17th century, the first English colony of Virginia was faced with the daunting task of trying to reconcile and take census of the many people groups that it found in the region as it is set sight towards the legislature and enslavement of people with visible volumes of melanin. Okay. And in November of 1682, legislation was passed that forged all Negroes, Moors, mulattoes, or Indians into a racial classification of Negro, all servers except Turks and Moors. Again, the scholarship is quite broad on the reasoning for this distinction, but some point to unspoken agreement with North African rulers during the Ottoman Empire that the later years would be codified in a series of treaties known as the Barbary Treaties. Treaties dated from the date of 18th century through the near 19th century set forth a number of agreements that provided certain civil and religious protections to those who arrived in early America from Northern Africa. Keep that in mind. Lincoln was no doubt familiar with the distinction and sought to rely on the legislative proceedings to make the case for his client. I say my client may be a Moor, but he is not a Negro. Lincoln won the case with prejudice. What prejudice means what? Not to be brought back up again, correct? Right? In the years to come, due to the effect of mass homogenization of ethnicities and melanin and the decline and eventual fall of the Ottoman Empire, the distinction between the legislative class of people recognized as Negro and those who receive legislative protection, which is those who say they Moors, right? Being identified as Negro lost to history. In America, if you have melanin and you are black, unless Lincoln, you can find some compelling argument why you are not. Lincoln's friend editor, again, go back to it when he was the Black Codes the Black Code, Illinois Black Codes, said that what an awful inference used to come from the idea of color. The devil was made black in Africa. The devil is white. All right, now, all right. So that was a story that goes back in 1855 when Lincoln was 46 years old, took on a case about a brother-in-law who was getting labeled Black Bill. So Black Bill say, hey man, you keep calling me black, you know, and where we at, and people start to believe that, I'm liable to lose. So libel, you got a libel suit. I got to take him to court because he's damaging my reputation. So he ended up getting Lincoln to be his lawyer. And this became a case. And in this case, Lincoln used his wit. The lawyer for the one who was the defense lawyer name was Moore, M-O-O-R-E. So he used his name to show the distinction that the individual who may look like a black person, you might identify him as a black person or a Negro, but of his ancestry, he was something else. And based on some treaty of the Barbary treaties, there was certain protections, and that's what you hear a lot of the Moors today talk about. But they said once that protection was blown up because of the break of the treaty or no more, let's say, honoring those treaties, that don't work no more. No more, right? Don't work no more. But the question becomes, was the people who they claimed they brought here, was they Moors? Because see, a lot of people, they tell you, going about the 1619, right? And they tell you that that was the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade. We know that to those of us who read history and forensically look at history know that is a lie. We know that's a lie. We know that the ship that you talk about, the 20-odd Negroes, was never coming directly here, was going to and cruise Mexico, right? The territory of the Spaniards, which the white line, which they intercept, took the booties, brought it in, and then brought them in, and then they make them what? They made them indentured servants. Let me say that one more again. Those who they took off that 10-odd, 20-odd Negroes were not slaves. They were indentured servants. And I'm going to show you something. Let me show you how what they do, again, as Malcolm said in the beginning, those who've been around at the beginning see the intro when Malcolm says, use his institution to rewrite history, retell history, right? Well, let me show you something here. Ever heard of this here? The first slave owner in America was not only a black man, he went to the court and demanded it. So they're going to sit here and tell you that how the first person who ended up being a slave was by not also being a black man, but it was the black man who started. Let me say that again. They want to tell you that the beginning of the slave trade and what started the whole slavery was predicated by a black man. Boy, don't they, Always, right? Always got this there, huh? Right? So what is his name? Anthony Johnson. Now look at the date they're going to say this is, 1654. Now, didn't they tell you 1619? Didn't they tell you in 1619 that the slave trade already had started. But how they sitting here telling you in 1654 that it was Anthony Johnson going to be the one that's going to set the precedents that's going to start slavery. But I thought you was doing it already in 1619. I thought you was already doing it. So let me give you the story of a man they call John Casor. Johncasor, right? Now, again, we're talking about 1654, a black indentured servant. They say he's the first man to be declared a slave in a civil case, right? He's the first man declared a slave in a civil case, year 1654. Again, as you see Anthony Johnson. Anthony Johnson also was an indentured servant that did his time, came out, acquired, became a free black person, and also himself had to get, he also started to hire indentured servants. So what they did is, this John Casor was saying that his indentured service was up. He did his time. And he went and sought after another person named Robert Parker. And Parker inquired him and gave him a contract. And so that when word got back to Anthony Johnson, he goes to him and says, hey, wait a minute. That dude still belongs to me. He still has time with me. Now, what they'll tell you is they'll talk about that he didn't really want to do this because there is, in that time, they called it headship right or head right. And if you abuse or fall left or right of it, you could lose, land you acquired and so forth and all that good stuff by violating any of those terms of indenture. So here was Johnson under duress, and he wanted to get free Casor from Robert Parker's hand. So accordingly, Casor, which is the one that we're talking about, had been entered into a 7-year indenture with Parker. So he went and made a new contract. So what Johnson did is he ended up suing him to repossess Casor. They went into the Northampton County, Virginia court, and the court ruled in the favor of Johnson and said that Parker illegally detained Casor from his rightful master, who they said held him for the duration of life. Now, this they want to say is the beginning of how black people in the United States is becoming slaves for life. Yeah, this is what they say there. Now, wait a minute. Do you not also know that there's a man named John Punch, who they claim is the first man who was documented as a slave in the Virginia colony? And he was sentenced to life in servitude because he attempted to escape with 2 other white men. They gave the other 2 white men more time of their indigenous, but they end up putting on him, they gave him life. Now that's before 1654. Okay. Now, this is what I want to pose to you, right? So with that being said, if that be the case, then what really is a Negro? And then when they talk about being the slave trade, how can you say slave trade when you were doing indentured service all up until when? 54? Really? So what about all this stuff about 16, 19, 20-odd Negroes? And they never tell you. So they just give you the story of the Spanish in the Spanish Main. You got to know what the Spanish Main is. They're telling you that story. They're telling you about that story. Because when you find out that the people of the Virginia company come into the game so late in the game already, for whatever they want to talk about transatlantic slave trade, that had already been done. So by the time if they do come here, it's already done. So if you know the story, you're going to know that they were trying to get in, how they get in through part of what they call the Negro des Acento, is the slave trade that they all keep saying, transatlantic slave trade. So this is how you know if somebody actually knows the damn story. If you don't hear de Negro Acento, they know shit about Atlantic trans slave trade. They know shit about it. They're just talking, running their goddamn mouth, saying any kind of thing, and then you take these damn stories, generalize it, and you make it apply to everything. Know where it was, who was doing it, where they was at, and you'll realize they never came here. They never came here. So how'd you get over there in them territories? How did you get over there? Well, I seen something, y'all. I seen this video, and this video was talking about Native Americans. Okay? The story was talking about the Native Americans and said they found the Native Americans. Okay? And they were showing stuff like this here, right? So they're showing the Native American picture and they're showing the United States, right? And then they say, well, we found them up in these areas up here. He was up in that area, the territories. And then they said there was the Ojibwa. They came down from the Canadas down in there, mixed with those in there. And then they traced them back. And when they traced them back, look at these territories. Look at that graph if you can see it good. See that big orange area up there that they're showing? Look on that map of who they saying they is. Slavic. They saying these people Slavic. Huh? Anybody know who the Slav people is? That's originally where that word slave comes from, right? Okay. So then they talked about how these tribes here, how they end up being here, but they actually had been pushed from other places. Then he's going to go into the DNA. He's going to exclude, now you know how you having people who are coming from South America, a lot of them from Mexico, a lot of them saying that the territory up here, that they were the Native Americans. Well, this individual here is going to exclude them. He's going to say, no, not them. And he's going to tell you why. But listen to this little first part of what he's going to say as to the changes in DNA and how no Latin people are these people. Listen.
This is a family tree based on DNA, male inherited DNA. That DNA changes every generation. It acts in a sense like a clock. It can tell you genealogical relationships, and the timing of those genealogical relationships allows you to reconstruct a family tree, and there's lots that you can learn from the family tree. I want to draw your attention to this branch that I've already referred to, Q, because this is where you find the vast majority of Native Americans. Or let me stop for a second and say, if you look at Latin America, the vast majority of Latin American men do not have a native Y chromosome. They have either a European or an African Y chromosome heritage because of the history of European colonialism and the ugly history of the transatlantic slave trade. So if we exclude those from our discussion and just focus on native history, those that are not obviously European, not obviously African, the vast majority of what remains is this branch Q. And again, I'm going to summarize because this is stuff I've covered elsewhere in a book and videos, and I'll point you. This is a fact.
Now that's him explaining about his chart and his graph. He said that those Latin men don't carry the Y chromosome gene passed down from the mother. So because of them having white and African in them, so they wouldn't, a Latin man is not going to have that gene. This is only going to be in who? What they trying to say, in the woman? That's what they say, it's going to be in the woman, right? All right. Well, I'm going to show you something. As he went on and talked about more about it, he says how that the Y chromosome from the dad, you lose 1% in every male when it's being born, so you lose one. So this is really trying to substantiate that even though when they take the test that you may not even be identical to your father, based on the fact that there's a percent that's been lost every generation, you lose a percent of those going back. Now this is what they saying. I ain't here to dispute that. That's for my brothers and sisters who y'all all into the indigenous and y'all doing this for y'all. I'm still on the black, African, and I'm on this rim. I'm with y'all, but I'm over here doing this. I come over to listen to y'all to get that, but I'm over here for those of y'all that still got to graduate to come up there. So don't hate on me. Just understand, you know what I'm saying? I come out of the generation where I know more about race and all that shit than y'all do because I was there. So I'm here to help them to make the transition to go there. You get what I'm saying? So don't hate me. Okay? All right, so now he talking about DNA, the copying the mistakes, right? He said the mistakes in it, right? That's what he said. Now, what I want you to see is he was finna go into this part. He made this chart. And if you can see good on that chart, he's talking about this haplogroup Q, he's saying. He's going to tell you that if you see that line there, it's showing you Mongolians. Yeah, you know that some people say Siberians, Mongolians, right? He's traced them to the Mongolian people. He's saying these Native Americans that's going to come here, they are Mongolians. I said, whoa, wait a minute, Mongolians? Mongolians? Are Mongolians Europeans or Mongolians Negroids or Africans? Well, you know what I'm saying? Is that? But watch what he says. Listen to this.
Probably read some of these names. Pima Indians, Mayans, Caritianas, and Suris from Brazil. Those are some of the populations that were sampled for this particular study. And you can see this whole section right here of Native Americans breaks away, separates from Mongolian. Pathran and Makrani are Pakistani groups. Russian, Naxi and Han are in China. Hazara in Afghanistan. These are Eurasian peoples. So the Eurasian section of Q separates from the American section of Q, which implies a migration event, around the 300s to 600s AD. You probably read some of these names. Pima Indians,
Okay, so again, he's tying them to Eurasian people, tying them to Eurasians, to the Indians, to the Russians, to the Caucasians. They're trying to link themselves there, right? With these people they calling Native Americans, right? That's what he's doing, right? That's what he's over there doing. Then he talked about this. Now the group he was saying originally was the Q group, right? But as you see on your screen, let me show you some slick talk he was doing. Let me show you the slick talk he was doing. Do you not see on the left part of your screen that says haplogroup C? And then he's showing this arrow and this traversing, right? But you see them yellow, you see them golden dots? He ain't talking about that. Well, that's what we see too, Mr. Blow Your Mind. What are you talking about? Let me show you when he was talking about the Q group. Look what he was showing. Let me show you something. See what it says haplogroup Q? He's showing how they traversing and come across barren straits and coming on down. Then when he talked about the same group, he talked about them C, he's still drawing that same conclusion. But yet he got them golden dots at the bottom. Who the golden dots at the bottom? Is them the Australioids? Is that what he's trying to say? But he didn't want to say that. He tried to talk, he tried to bypass that. Is that what he tried to do? Let me show you again so maybe you can see this. How is he be talking about, look, Haplo Q group, and he's showing that, right? He's showing that. But then when he said Haplo C, he shows you this. It's still the same trajectory, same people. But then this time he got the golden ones. But he ain't talking about them golden ones. He ain't talking about them. And then he said for some odd reason, when they do the markers, when in Canada, he said there's way more of the C group in Canada, and then there's the Q group that's here in the United States. But who is that C group? I was one trying to figure out, well, who the hell is the C group? I sent him a message. I know he's not going to respond, but I sent him a message. Right? And so they give me this timeline, right? That they traverse about 900 AD, and they coming across, right? And they getting all settled. Because you got to ask yourself the question. These people that they identify and call themselves Native Americans, they doing this traversing, say about 10,000 or so they claim, and they coming across. Now again, this isn't about trying to take nothing away from nobody. We're just gonna say what they presenting here. So he's showing by the time they get settled, look at the time he's saying. He getting them settled somewhere about 1224. AD. So I guess that makes sense why when they try to tell us the story that the people that they claiming that these Native American people are still living in teepees, when they said they had been here for thousands of years, you have to say, well, damn, there was no building or no civilization, no structures. You were still in teepees, right? Like, wait a minute, where, right? You gonna develop at some period of time, right? You came from somewhere else and you start civilization. So now what he's saying is that they only been here maybe 100 years before the white man come here when he coming on the boat. So he got him at 1224, right? He got him coming at 1224. Yeah, that's what he's showing, right? He's showing them at 1224. So he talk about how the difference in languages and something, they try to trace it through the language and stuff. Okay, so now the point is, have you ever heard of Black Mongol? You ever heard of the Black Mongols? The Black Mongolians. You ever heard of the Black Mongolians? Have you ever heard of, what about the history of Kaffa? You ever heard of Kaffa? You ever heard of the Black Plague from 1346? How Europe, where the Black Plague and mugs was dying, 1/3 or 2/3 of their people all died, right? Well, there also was the Egyptians. It was also the Mongols. It was all them was all getting affected at that time in the area. But then the Mongols are invading Europe, and they become in Kaffa a cosmopolitan people. Mr. Blowman, what are you trying to say? Is it possible somebody came with him? He was partnering with somebody? He partnered? You was partners with him? You was some of the ones that, you know how in every history, just like when you say Moors, you find Moors go fight with Europeans, got lined up with Europeans. So that pretty much every people have their set of people who go against their own people. Was there Mongols that went with the Europeans? And when he came here, when they tell us that the smallpox in the blanket, maybe they just had it on their ass. Because one thing that we today can say for a fact, we know what it is to be in a pandemic. Can we say that? We know what it was, just like it was in 1919 or what it was when they had it. So we would understand what they went through in 1346, right? And we know everybody don't die. Everybody don't die, right? So is it possible? You know, a lot of people, you see, y'all don't use your mind. If the book don't tell you, you can't use your damn mind. I'm sorry. See, that's the problem. That's where you're training. That's where you see the diploma said that this is what they teach. Use your black mind. Well, use your mind. Sometimes the answer ain't gonna be in there because that don't mean they're not lying. What do your eyes see? How do you perceive? You lost all your common sense? You mean to tell me you've been in for 10,000 years that they would say, and you were still living like you just got here? Or was you just camping out because you was just getting here and you was helping them to help to take over some other shit? Is that could have been it? Because the Negro is a misnomer. The Negro ain't who you is. Black is another misidentification of some name they're giving you. So it's something everybody knows that we don't know, but they sold a story that we all got to sell and go with. And that's the way that they're going to teach it, and that's the way they're going to keep reiterating. And those against us, well, we consider conspiracy nuts. Oh, we're just that black corner talking that rhetoric and all that good stuff. But if I show you in history that these people, that some of the people who, again, he traces to being Mongolians, were also when they're in Europe with those that came from Genoa, the Genesceans, right? That with Christopher Columbus and all them, and those merchants, they was over there fucking with them. They was kicking it with them. Because they had come and kicked it with them when they were coming over here to explore. And we're gonna use you to be the one that's a proxy. You're gonna be the Lee Harvey Oswald. You're gonna be the John Wilkes Booth. That when we take from them and paper genocide them, we're gonna make you to be, because why? Because in order for you to get this, now look at what I'm going to show you. In order for you to get this, in order for you to be in this group, it ain't got nothing to do about no DNA, does it? It ain't got nothing to do with that. Having Native American ancestry or indigenous American DNA does not make someone a Native American tribal citizen. See? Having American ancestry, Native American ancestry, or indigenous DNA ain't got nothing to do with it. We did this last week, but they cut me off, so I'm going to come back again. There are differences between a person's genetic, political, cultural identity. Native American tribal members are citizens of their nation. This is a political and cultural identification. Political and cultural, not about genetics. Political and cultural, not about genetics. Rather than a genetic identification, similar to being a citizen of any other country. Right? There are more than 570 federally recognized tribal nations and over 60 state recognized tribes. There are also some regionally recognized tribal communities, right? We'll get through this. Let's get through this, right? Individual tribe nations determine the criteria for tribal citizen, okay? Individual tribal nations, individuals, peoples who've been set as the panel, as the judges, determine the tribal citizenship. Tribal nations determine the legitimacy and strength of someone's family connection. They're going to be the one that determine whether what? Legitimacy and the strength of someone's family connection. Not DNA. Not DNA. So when they be telling you, y'all pretendians, you Isaiah, you can't get, because why? The criteria is not based on some structural. It's like, if you know they Mongolians, what is the Mongolian DNA? That's the DNA. If you want to get in that group, if you got the DNA of a Mongolian, you should be able to qualify to be in there, right? But no. We're not counting. No. Just like he did with the Latin. He said, in the Latin man, there is no Y chromosome on the man. So that exclude him. So he could never, a Latin Native American man could never be considered a Native American. Remember what the white guy said? What he said, that's what he said, right? So that leaves the woman, right? Okay. The Y chromosome, right? So now, when it comes to being this one here and the criteria you need, listen to what they say. They say that for many tribal nations, this means tracing a person's lineage back to someone on tribal citizen roll from the late 19th and early 20th century. No. You need to be able to match to a person that was on the roll. It's kind of like being in college. It's kind of like saying legacy. You can only be back if your father, grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-great-grandfather was back when we originally created this political, right? Political, cultural, this thing we call Native American. If you can't get a people on that, that's what qualifies you. Not nothing about DNA, nothing to do with genetics, but there is a genetic test. If you connect to that person, okay, like they say, like the dolls roll. Sometimes a percent of blood called blood quantum is also used. And see that right there, those people who don't know nothing about it against our brothers and sisters who in here teaching that indigenous history, telling about that story, and they try to make them not to be, and they say, see, they don't qualify, they don't put you in there. See, look, it ain't counting you. It's because they got it rigged. It's a rigged game. It's rigged for only those who've been in this group, who we say and who we determine who is. That means it could be biased in excluding people, because watch what they say as it go on. Listen to what they tell you. This ain't my words. Blood quantum is not how tribal nations have historically determined who is a tribal member. Rather, blood quantum was created and later used by the United States government to dispossess Native American people of their land. I wonder who they was really dispossessing. Making this about a blood quantum and then being about a roll, and then does that make you non-being indigenous to this land if you don't fit the role and you don't fit the criteria that somebody else is helping to dispose you? And a lot of people will argue with us. You're African. Everybody African if you go with the theory y'all saying. I heard somebody who tried to disclude and say these other people were African because all of a sudden the pigmentation loss made them not African. Is it biologically tied or is it melanin? I mean, which one is it? Is it by biological makeup or is it just your pheno look that makes you African? Make me understand that. I heard somebody say that. I heard somebody say that emphatically. I was like, damn, really? That's how you excluding them? Well, shit, that damn Chinese still saying he tracing his shit back to Africa. He getting all up in there, ain't he? I have a hard time getting all of them up out of here. That's because you're landlocked and made everybody can only be that. And they said at the beginning that he threw Lucy in there. He coming in there too. See, what you're supposed to do, lock his ass out. Indigenous everywhere. We ain't in no just one damn place, but now y'all so damn gung-ho, stuck on something. Now it's like everything for food, and then he go trace his ass right back in there because it said the origin of all man comes from there. You can't exclude us. Okay, don't pay no attention to me. Don't pay no attention to me. It was not until the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934 that the United States began requiring tribal nations to use blood quantum to determine tribal citizenship. Why the U.S. is all worried about who in it? Oh, yeah, I know they paying them, right? They're giving their allotments and they're getting all that, right? I get that. But is it also having to dispossess and dispose and again, you got a people. Now think about this. Think about this. Having somebody in your group kicking it with you, none of y'all don't like them. Y'all gave him a nickname that really said something in the language. He said he was somebody from outside and he didn't speak English. And y'all called him Schlep Rock or some shit like that, right? Wowsy, wowsy, woo, woo, right? And he was bad luck, right? Those who know, they remember that. Wowsy, wowsy, woo, woo. But he got a bad name. It's really not a good name, but that's the nickname y'all gave him. And he lives with that and all the ostracism and disgraces that comes with it. This is the name y'all label him. He outside of everything. He can't get nothing based on the way y'all identify him. And we have to say, why did you need to do that to him? Why you can't let him just be himself and still do the same thing, but let him have his identity? What is about his identity that cannot be known because it's going to mess the fucking game up? What is about him that's going to mess the game up? That we got to make sure Negro, colored, black, African American, all these terms that don't get no distinction, right? No ethno, what do you call it? Ethnic national identity, right? Ethno national identity, none. You just a stateless non-people need to conform to something, but what? Capitulate to what? What are we supposed to capitulate to? Huh? All right. So let's go on. Let's see, right? What are they saying? It's also important to recognize that some people have strong cultural or family connections to a tribe without being a tribal citizen. Huh? It is also important to recognize that some people have strong cultural and family connections. So you may have some people who might be tied culturally and may have an in-law in it and still not be a tribal citizen. There are many reasons for this, they say, including issues of parental consent. Parental consent. Well, your parents got that's like a permission slip to go on a field trip. No? Okay. Paper genocide. Oh, paper genocide. Things like Walter Plecker and things like that, right? Where they went and again, remember in the case with Lincoln, right? It said they demarcated Negroes, Moors, right? Indians. Now, why the hell is Indians considered to be Negro and black and Moor? How you put him in that group if he ain't got nothing to do with that? Oh, later on we didn't mean that. We didn't mean that. We didn't mean that. So now we got this new special way of doing it. Now it says what? That again, paper genocide. Is that what then happened? Is that what happened? You know, when that young man, that Coleman, was talking about reparations and about how long a time and that it's been past the clock time. And then they always want to tell us something about, well, you know, slavery was over in 1863. What was really slavery? What really was the real linchpin in slavery? What about partus sequitur ventrum? You ever heard of that? Partus sequitur ventrum. You know, that's some law word. That's a word in law that I'm going to ask y'all a question. What does that mean? When they said chattel slavery, what does chattel slavery even mean? What does partus, P-A-R-T-U-S, S-E-Q-U-I-T-I-U-R, V-E-N-T-R-U-M, what does that mean? What does that mean, y'all? That means if your mama was a slave, everything your mama birthed is going to be slaved. When did they take that off the book? When did they take that off the book? You won't tell me you took off 1863. What about partus sequitur ventrum? When did you take that off? Where's that on the books? That's where the slavery at. Because see, you could be a white man or a white person where common law applies to you. And so when white people, it's about the father. So that's why, like Thomas Jefferson's son and them could be manumitted, is because of the daddy being under common law means he could have freed them. But let me tell you something. Let me hold on before I go there. You know why a lot of times some of these black folks be getting these other people? Because it got something to do with this in their DNA, going back in the Akashic records. Mugs was getting somebody so that their children wouldn't be slaves. This is what it is, sisters. A lot of them don't want you not be so much because they don't love you. It's because in their DNA, somewhere in their Akashic records of memory, they still have this in them, that they don't want to have their child to be born a slave. So anything that comes through the black woman is naturally part of the partus sequitur ventrum. They never took that off the book. So it's just something that's there that we just deal with, but we don't know. Working hard. You hear me? Hold on. Let me put this up here just in case. Some of y'all new over here. Let me put this up here. They working hard, y'all. They working hard. I'm working hard. You don't appreciate. You don't know what I'm doing. Some people think I'm saying a whole bunch of shit. No. You see them pull me out of this? They took me all the way out. I'm saying something that y'all just keep passing on thinking it's all bull. This ain't what it is. I'm telling you what it is. I ain't here to tell you what I heard. I'm here to tell you what I know. And what I'm telling you is, when did they gonna take that off? Partus sequitur ventrum. From your mama, who was they considered to be slave, means everything been born is still under that. So you could tell me Emancipation Proclamation, which ain't no law. You could tell me 13, 14, 15 Amendment, but if you've been over here long enough, you know that the 13, 14 Amendment, federally slavery still exists. State you're a slave, says you go to jail. 2/3 of the states get together, it's all legal once again. Now you take it for what you want to take it for, right? They say it was considered okay, now listen. In 1662 in Virginia and later on in the English royal colonies, to establish legal citizens of children born there, they were considered to follow the status of their mothers. Therefore, children of enslaved women were born into slavery. Say that one more again for me, Mr. Blow Your Mind. I don't mind if I do. From 1662 in Virginia and later in other English royal colonies to establish the legal status of children born there, they were considered to follow the status of their mother. Therefore, children enslaved women were born into slavery. Those born to free white women were born free. The legal doctrine of partus sequitur vinculum derived from the Roman civil law, which concerned personal property, which is chattel. When did they stop chattel? Did they stop it? Did they stop it? Did they stop it? Did they stop it? I know a lot of you don't want to believe this. I know you don't want to believe that. You want to believe you free. You want to believe ain't no saying they doing right in your face. They replace right in our damn face. What you gonna do about it? Nothing you can do about it, right? They're bringing in the new ones, right? They're bringing new ones right in front of our face. They're gonna be the new replacements because you know why? You know why? Do you know slavery was declared an economic social good? In all social systems, there must be a class to do the menial duties, to perform the drudgeries of life, such as a class you must have, or you won't have the other classes, which leads to progress, civilization, and refinement. You got to have a bottom class. You got to have somebody you stepped on. But in this case, we're gonna in Chesapeake impasse. They're gonna pass you by and you're gonna be still there, and everybody believes you just been here, lazy, shiftless, didn't want nothing. And see these new people that came here who work hard and came here, and look at them to put that on you to make you care. They okay. All right. Let's go back to the Indian. Let's go back to that. Let's go back there. Those who want to donate. There it is. Most hated show on the black corner of the internet. Native American ancestry claim to be Native American because of a distant or unverifiable Native American ancestry contradicts the tribal nation's right to sovereignty. In fact, so many people falsely claim to have Cherokee great-grandmothers that it is deemed an anthropological phenomenon. Black people talking about I got Cherokee in my family. What will LL say? Something like a phenomenon. Something like a phenomenon. Hit it, huh? Say it's a phenomenon. Y'all keep saying that. And when you understand the game is rigged, that's why they can say that with a straight face. There's no way you could be Cherokee unless that we had once upon a time, one of your ancestors was in the beginning of the game and we got his name on that roll. Can you be considered to be in here? Like Kyrie Irving was lucky enough, if you want to think that's luck, to have an ancestor that was on the road and they put him in there. Okay, I got a message here. Mr. Spencer said once again, he does have a Cherokee in his family. And again, just like they say, yeah, you may have one, but do we recognize them as one? That's the whole, again, ever have reservations to a certain restaurant. You want to walk in, you see nobody sitting in there eating, then you walk up in there, you come with your lady, y'all all looking good, you know what I'm saying, smelling good, you know, say, ma'am, go ahead, take a hit, it's going to help, you know, cap the night off. You walk up in there, you got a reservation, you looking like ain't nobody in here. You got a reservation though. We don't care, ain't nobody up in here, but do you got a reservation to come up in here? Well, no reservation, you can't come in here. So we have people in our family that we know that identify and so forth. But in this game, this political, what they call it, political cultural game that they call Native American, you got to be on the list. I'm not denying you, brother. I'm not denying you at all. I'm saying I believe, but maybe it's not Cherokee. Because again, just like I said about Africa, The names of the country, the name of the places should resonate with the name of the people that's there. Why do the names all sound English or some name that we can all pronounce without have to go into the verbiage, language, or tongue of the nations that it comes from? Shouldn't China have a name like, again, I'm only doing this hypothetically not to be making fun. Ping pong, pong, right? That's the name it should be. Ping pong, pong, right? We should have to go ping pong, pong to say the name of the place, right? And then if we go over here to Germany, we have to say it like that, right? And if we go over here to right? We would have to say that. But why does all these names sound similar? Right? You get what I'm saying? I mean, come on, man. All right, again. Don't take it personal. Somebody should hear me. I'm only saying if we had to speak it in the language. Not making fun anyway, right? So they say it's a phenomenon. If we saying that, we say something about it. We just keep saying that. We keep saying that. And they say we keep denying it. They matumbo and they blocking every time you trying to go up for the dump. They blocking your shit. Like, get that shit out of here, right? So anyway, they say this doesn't mean that the presence of a Native American ancestor is not an important feature of someone's family. Like Mr. Spencer. It's an ancestor that's important in his family. Matter of fact, it's very close. It's only a generation away. But they said, well, look what they say. However, there's a crucial difference between the claims I have a Native American lineage and I am. See, Mr. Blow Your Mind said he have. But they said to be in our club, you got to, I am. See, you ain't one. The one that got in, like say your grandmother was on the road, she is one. You can be, if you go to the panel and then they say they done broke you down and they say, all right, we grant you Ola Salima, come on in. Come get the full package and everything. Then you can get in. That's what they doing. That's another crazy. Yeah, people be jumping in and out. Oh, they offended. Hey, truth sometimes gonna be offensive. It's sometimes gonna be offensive. Don't mean I'm trying to be offensive, but that's what it is. Sometimes it's just gonna be that way. This doesn't mean that the presence of a Native American ancestor is not important in the future. Someone, okay, however, okay, I said that already. What are we doing? Go back one more. Okay, sorry about that, y'all. It says indigenous American DNA. Although the criteria may differ between nations, no tribal nation considered indigenous American DNA to be a legitimate claim to citizenship. In part, this stems from the traditional belief that kinship, network, not ethnicity or DNA determines who is Native American. Ain't that something? Look what it says. Read it good. The criteria may differ between nations. It's kind of like taking the damn DNA test. You can take the DNA test 50 times and never come out with the same conclusion. Why is that? How is it possible you take that test and not come out with the same one every time? Why is it different one? So they say the same thing when it comes to these nations. Every time you take it, it's never going to come out the same. Or they're not going to give you the same results. And so even though it's a traditional belief that kinship network, which is family connection, not ethnicity or DNA determine who is the next. See, they said family connections. Again, to make it easier. If your family, when they went back in 1866 and when they made those tribes, and matter of fact, anybody was here when I showed you in a book called Star of the West, and I showed you over 300 to 400 different tribes of people in this United States, what they had classified as they call Indians. So how did you take down 300 to 400 and get it down to 5? That means there's a lot of people have not been, again, that ain't part of the game. So again, when I said, they say Mongols, and I said that these Mongols in history are tied to them same people who are the trades, the people with Christopher Columbus and all of them. Is it possible that some of them is some of them? And that when it comes to hijack, that somehow they're using it? Never mind. All right, never mind. I'm telling you, well, hold it, put it up there one more again. Or they y'all gonna say, hey man, I remember that brother, man. I remember that brother. That brother, he hit the like button now. Do this now. Later on, you're going to be like, hey, that brother's trying to say that. Now, everybody got their lane. Everybody got their lane. I don't try to ride nobody else's lane. It's a lane that was given to me. So all that stuff ain't coming in there. Some of that stuff is just, intuitively sometimes. Some of y'all, the way some of these people today, everything got to be, I got the receipts. But that don't mean the damn receipts ain't lying. They act like the damn receipts don't be lying. Like somebody said, science. Science don't lie, but that mean the people who let's say this, who pay for that and don't want certain shit to come out, that still can be skewed. But you have to be able to understand it can be that way. Anyway, right? All right, tear it down again. Okay. They said their tribal communities, even after it was signed into law, today Native American children still make up a disproportionate part of the United States adoption and foster care system. DNA could help Native American affected by adoption or foster care reestablish their family connection for reasons that include tribal sovereignty. Ancestry does not break down DNA results by the tribe, but we do provide an approximate geographical region, Indigenous America. So they said the only time they're going to use the DNA test is for those who had been in foster that had been taken by the system. And then when to try and do a DNA test to those people who connect to those people who were originally on that dog's roll, and if any of them matches the DNA of any of them, they could qualify. So the only time they're going to use. So anytime you hear people say, y'all don't got no DNA in that, that's because it ain't built on that. It's not structured on a DNA pattern of, again, you would have a Mongolian, right? As the white dude said, they Mongolians, Eurasians. That means that structure should be that, but they said, no, it ain't gonna go to that. It's going by some list, again, with some people who created from the beginning that was sanctioned by the United States, and then they gave them another criteria to make sure to X all them other ones out by blood quantum test. Get it? All right. Let's get to this, right? So let's get, we almost at the bottom part here, right? We almost there, y'all. What it says now, it goes on and it says that results are breaking down by the tribes. They go into that. We don't need to go on that. Some Native American communities have limited participation in genetic research. Yeah, they go into that. We covered this on the last one, but I'm going to make sure that I covered this because why? Because remember when he showed this part, let me go back. We don't need to go no more than that because we kind of went over all that, but I just want to make for those who didn't come the last time, see that what I was talking about, just in case you didn't see that. But let me show y'all something. Remember when they were saying here, go to that one. All right, go to that one. See, they were showing that golden part down there and see how that's coming across Australia. You remember when, and this is before I seen this, y'all. That part what you seeing now is what I got the week after I went on last week. And remember when I showed y'all this? Remember when I showed this here? Remember when I showed this? Remember showing you the continent of Africa? You okay? You see all that? And then I showed you this, right? Remember I showed you this? And remember that down at that bottom left corner is Australia. Kind of like what you see. Let me go back, show that one. Go back this one. Kind of like this here. See there? You see that? See that gray area to the left? That's Australia, right? And remember, I kept asking, I said, well, damn. If Australia is there and then cat corner to the right, you can see the United States. And then I said, well, damn, there's other little islands there. And then I said, well, damn, see that circle there? That's Hawaii. Well, how the hell did niggas get to their Hawaii from that kind of distance of water that they showing? So if the Australians could get that far to Hawaii, remember when I was telling him, I said, how come when he talked about this dude here, when he talked about that golden part, he went back to talk about the top part. Remember, he was talking about the Q at the beginning at the top. And then when he says the C, he's still talking about the purple part. He didn't talk about the golden part Because the golden part is like them Australians. How the Australians didn't get here. If they could get to Hawaii, how come they couldn't get to the United States? Or the place that we call the United States or North America? How they couldn't get there? Huh? You show them other people walking around through the back door, Bering Straits, down through Alaska, Canada, West, right? But you know, that's like Jordan jumping from the free throw line. Right? Y'all had to see Dr. J and Jordan jump from the free throw line. And then later on there was John Barry. And I don't know, did Rex Chapman try that shit? I don't know if he tried it, something like that, right? Right? But you had to see Doc and Jordan do it first. Right? And they called them the superb ones. Yeah, they defy. Because you tell us the only way we could have came is only if you brought us. But they showing you, how did they get up in Hawaii? How did they get in Hawaii? And don't they call the 50th state of the United States Hawaii? You ain't claimed it. It's got to be it's close. So if they could get there, they could get here. So when those people who you said Mongolians came through the back about 900 AD, come on down, who did they see? Who did they see when they came? They didn't see nobody? But you still claim them to be, you say native and then you kind of slowly say indigenous, but we know damn well indigenous have to be people of melanin, at least origin. And then if you want to say people got lighter, then that means something else infused in you that took away that melanin. So you're further away from than going closer to. And they want to present in front of all of us fair-skinned people as indigenous people. And then they got a people called black, Negro, colored, who ain't Africans, but they just some people that just existed. Nobody know the hell, and they just got to go with the story. But like I said, in Virginia, didn't even have slavery until they're in the 1700s. You don't even have slavery. You still have indentured. So that's a contradiction in that story, y'all. It's a contradiction in that story. And so what is the Negro? What is the Negro black? What is it? What then is he? What then is he then? That's only you can answer that. Only you can answer that. They tell you copper color people, right? They tell you the copper color people was there. People tell, oh, copper saying red color, right? I said, well, what the hell is bronze then? What the hell is bronze? Bronze says brown. Brown. Who browner than us? Who browner than us? And people always tell us, well, white people, they slept with you and you guys are... We maintain this. Ain't enough white. You ain't put enough white in that. Today, if you have these children that have them, they children sometimes come, but we come going back. That's strong. That's a strong brown. That gene's strong. Sometimes it mutates, but those of us who still got that same lineage to the day with 2 pairs, 4 pairs, 8, 16, 32. All right, y'all. We just talking. Again, we're at the 249 mark. Well, there ain't nothing else to go. There ain't nowhere else to go with that. The question becomes, Negro, black, who then are you then? Who then are you? Because the Lincoln told you, well, shit. He said, well, that one, just because he looked like that didn't make him. What was his background? What was his ancestors? Well, everybody keep telling you your ancestors was African, but you can't show me an African in my lineage. But you want me to take the story that somebody sold and say, that's the only way you can be. Is that how that works? That ain't how that works. And why y'all need to believe that we've been brought some damn where else? Because otherwise it gives this validity to this as a immigrant country. Because you got to believe that the people that you done deemed as Native Americans as the original, then that takes the claim away that you have to stick us to the story that you brought us. But what if all that shit is a lie? Can y'all accept that? Who the true indigenous people are? Can y'all handle that? Looks like y'all can't. Looks like everybody's in cahoots to run us amok and run us out and run us dead, y'all. I'm just gonna keep it 100. So, again, I am the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. This has been another We Up report. Mr. Spencer said probably not. Yeah, probably not. Yeah, I probably not. Probably not. Can't accept that. Love everything about what you do. Like what Paul Mooney said, everybody want to be one, but don't want to be one. Everybody want to be a nigga, but nobody want to really be a nigga. You like style, clothes, talk, swag, but the shit they know in the confines in the corner that they talk about how they hate us and what they do, that's the part they don't want. That's the part they don't want. So, appreciate everybody being here. Thank you, Mr. Smith. I'm gonna call you Mr. Blow Your Mind. Thank you, Mrs. Spence, for that. I try to do the best I can. I know sometimes, man, it's unorthodox to a lot of ears. A lot of ears think that I'm just saying, I'm like, it may be to you, it may be, but you better go look. Go find out that Mongolian is tied in anywhere with them slave traders that was bringing the people, because they was in the slave trade too. And who was they bringing? And then they tell you that they were bringing white folks here. Majority of the people that they come out 1619 is white folks. And this Mongolian is in the slave trade too. And then you got those with him lining up with those traders that was coming from Europe that were coming here. So again, this mug is sitting out here in the teepee. Maybe he was part of some kind of a war booty. Skate, like they say, you know how they say, what they call it? Maroon. Maybe they were Maroons. Them that you see out there, they might have been Maroons that got away. But then this other gang came, and then the other people who they not counting, they had to exclude them in a way. And when they talk about paper genocide, that's what it looked like happened to us. Somebody on paper killed us on paper. Made us stateless people, made us a people with no home, with no identity, no nationality, and only choice that you're given is the one that makes us not to be inclusive here. So we have to determine that. We can't let other people determine that. Again, most hated show in the black corner of the internet. I'm your host, Mr. Blow Your Minds. Want to thank once again this brother. You know, man. Told you, man. I'm gonna tell you the story, man. You real good brother, man. And when our family, we always appreciate what you do. I hope you continue to do that whenever you can. Appreciate that. And so, as we get up out of here, move that for me, sir. Yeah, that brother, right? So until next week's show, to the next show, y'all, and to my next hit it show.
Remember, the enemy has only images and illusions, behind which he hides his true motives. Destroy the image, and you will break the enemy.